Hello and welcome back to Ultramarines. I'm your host as usual, Lane, joined with
Connor back again.
And last episode was a doozy of one. Hopefully this one isn't too long, but this one is going to be going back to Vulkan. Vulkan lives.
Yes.
And the Salamanders. This one is a bit out of sequence. I mean, it's right after Vulkan lives. It's called Deathfire. So this is during Imperium Secundus. So I know we kind of covered that and that kind of broke up already in our other episodes. So but we're going to go back to this because we have to cover some of this stuff.
Okay.
So
is this kind of like I know like Imperium Secundus was like, okay, he got stabbed by giant Macragge. Is this all post that, kind of picking up from there?
Yes.
Okay.
So it is about during that time of when he arrives, because remember the last one ended, he's teleporting in the atmosphere, Macragge burns up. So this is when he does the whole thing in that book where he smashes the glass, chases curs, that whole thing, and then he gets stabbed by Granicus, all that.
Yeah. Okay.
So yes. So, but first we're going to start with Numeon, and we've covered Numeon before. He is the guy, the spear. He is first captain, I think. And how he ended him, he got shot. A bolt pistol had shot him through the chest, and he's blind in one eye, and there's lightning around him. And he should be dead, but he's not. He's holding on to two things. He's holding on to this small fire-forged hammer that he's holding with us since Vulkan lives, the book Vulkan lives. And he keeps repeating that sentence to himself, Vulkan lives, Vulkan lives. So take a shot every time.
So do we need to bring back the counter?
Bring back the counter. And then, when you die by the end, actually the last one ended with Vulkan dies. So
that's true.
But all of a sudden he passes out and he wakes up inside a cell. He's been captured, and he introduces himself as Xenut Sul, who is a word bearer with an oddly featureless face, almost like an Alpha Legion blank, very boring face. Like he has no weird eyebrows, his nose is normal, eyes are just looks very plain. So very unsuspecting. Like it could be anyone you know.
Yeah.
He's put on the right disguise, like an Alpha Legion person.
I'm imagining like default me character.
Exactly. He is just Vin Diesel, right?
Yeah.
Family. And Xenut Sul says to him, "Why has your father's strength deserted you when you need it the most?" And Numeon refuses to answer. And Xenut Sul keeps asking him, he says, "Where is the Fulgurite? And what do you know about Methuselah Narek? Vulkan lives." And Xenut Sul says, "Stop saying that." And he starts beating him. He says, "You are weak because your father is dead. You just don't have the wit to see it." And something metal flashes in his hand. Xenut Sul's hand. Now, in a different fight on a different ship, the Dark Sacrament, a word bearer's cruiser, is dying in space, got taken out by a precision strike that basically crippled it. And 4 Cestus assault rams are latched onto his hull. Ultramarines are aboard. Specialist unit. They have the stripe of red paint down the faceplate. Basically, that type of, so not quite in Thiel's red paint, but it is just that. Space Marine 2, Titus has it, paint in the middle. So
I was going to ask for that. So that is not the same as Feels like, what was it? Did something wrong, right?
Yeah, he's censored for doing his war games against other Space Marines.
Yeah. So that red stripe is not.
No, the red stripe is a captain. It's like a red and white thing. Whereas his, in that picture, you see he's literally dipped in red paint in front of his head.
Right. Okay.
So it's not very pretty. It's not like fancy like the other one is.
Yeah.
So these guys are here and they're aboard specialist unit with the red paint, and they are led by Sergeant Vitus Inviglio, who leads 3 of his brothers towards the engines through a corridor, and they're getting taken out down to one man, Drusus, who got killed by a World Eater, and it is a whole mess. And all of a sudden they run to a word bearer who is a demon-possessed host that the Ultramarines call an Unburdened, which is basically that same type of the Gal Vorback. Argol Tall is one of those guys.
Yeah.
And those things are, they're powerful. And we talked about before, a group of them killed 5 custodians. I still think it's a little funny, but apparently they're that good. It kills one of them named Lyrgus in seconds, just guts them open. And Viglio, Navis, and Brachus are fighting it together. And even together, it takes a lot of work to put this thing down. And Viglio's blade barely scratches it. And Brachus has to hit it with an axe before Inviglio can drive the Gladius into his neck. And finally, this thing dies, and it looks, barely even hurt when they kill it. But back on their planet, something like that would have been destroyed.
Right.
So they finish it, and it collapses into kind of gore in like a meat pile, like a video game. And the demon inside, it leaves the body, leaves the host, because I don't want to die. That's scary. So Inviglio reports to the commander and says, "Sergeant, we fought some weird demon thing." And he says 2 other ships are leaving, and he says, "We go to intercept." And the sergeant says, "With all haste." So that's what Ultramarines are dealing with right now with the word bearers. And underneath the Fortress of Hera, which is on Macragge, in a vault built specifically to hold him, you see Var'kir Zytos is kneeling in front of a golden casket that is where Vulkan is. And Nocturnian funeral rites are fire. Basically, they burn you on the pyre, it's the whole thing. But Vulkan is in this one, sealed in glass and gold instead, and Zytos finds the whole arrangement close to unbearable. He says he belongs to the earth, not in this cold and gilded barrow. And beside him is Festus Var'kir, a chaplain, one of the voices of fire, who barely survived Isstvan 5, but is ministering to the legions marching to kind of the name that the Salamanders used to have. He says, with his influence, we were made protean, brother. We were changed from the dragon warriors we used to be. To be fair, dragon warriors is a cool name, but
yeah,
they're salamanders now instead, which is like, I'll be like, really? Can't be like dragons?
I feel like a salamander is not very threatening.
Yeah, exactly. Salamanders kind of, maybe that's the point, right? He's like, we're not supposed to be dangerous and crazy. So Vulkan is still in this casket, and he has Dawnbringer with him. And remember, we talked about before, he found Macragge, burned out that whole thing. So now this is picking up to that casket where we need to take him back to our planet.
Right.
So Var'kir has a gift, which basically he can read fire in the way some men read, like you would read scripture. And he can stares into the vault's memorial flame for a long moment, searching for something to pull out of it. And he says, I'm getting nothing. And Zytos bows his head, and he asks Vulkan for one thing that neither of them has left. He says, Father, we have great need of hope. Please, awaken. And back to Numeon. Pain wakes him up. He has fresh stitches that run down his side, and crude stitches across his chest and back. And wherever he is now is on the same cell. He's had visions in and out of consciousness, Leodrak and Porgellan standing over him with sunken, rotting faces, animate corpses that felt real enough to convince him, but they weren't. Dead is dead, and nothing changes that. Except for Vulkan. Because Vulkan lives. And a voice greets him, like a scientist-type voice. He says, being able to distinguish phantoms from what is real will serve you well here. It's not Xenut Sul anymore. His place is someone new, tall and transhuman, wrapped in crimson robes marked with Colchisan script. Skin patterned dark cuneiform. He's a space marine, but he's not dressed like one. He's wearing these robes instead. And Numeon is strapped to a slab. And the sigil, the small hammer he's had since Vulkan lives, is gone from his hand. He says, the hammer, where is it? And the figure ignores the question. He says, it speaks. Xenut Sul said you would not speak to him. Will you speak to me then, Artellus Numeon, of Vulkan's honored pyre guard? And Numeon calls him, you're a word bearer, you're a traitor. And the preacher says, loyalty is a matter of perspective, Artellus. Yours is merely different to mine. He says, I know everything you know, Artellus. And he says, Xenut Sul's task was not the extraction of information. He merely wished to hurt you. That was my bargain with him. And the preacher is something called a dark apostle, which is similar to a psyker for the word bearers, but they really are warp priests in a way.
Okay.
So he can pull information of his mind, like a psyker usually can, but he wants to find Barthuza Narek. When we talked about Barthuza Narek before, and I mistakenly said he died on Macragge, and he did not. I mean, nobody really said anything about it in the comments, but
that's the word bearer.
yes,
Okay,
he snuck in on the thing, and then they put him in prison. And I was like, yeah, they killed him. I was like, no, he didn't, idiot fool. So yes, but even word bearers are like, he's a renegade to us. Like, even we don't know what he's doing. Alpha Legion. So, but they want to get him, and they want to figure out what he's been doing. But he said, but that's not totally what he wants from to be on. He says, I want to know Fulgurite, the stone sphere invested with the Emperor's power on Earth. And Numeon says it's nothing. It's some glass. It's nothing. What are you worried about? And the preacher's like, all right, you stop lying to me. And he says, I want it because it killed the immortal Primarch and turned one of our own against us. No cold stone can do that. And Numeon refuses it. It says, Vulkan lives and nothing you will say will convince me otherwise. So you might as well just kill. And the chamber shakes. Because Vulkan lives. And the preacher looks over his shoulder at someone Numeon can't see or hear. And whatever he said, though, isn't good enough news for him. And all of a sudden, a second figure walks straight through the preacher, and the projection disengages. The preacher was not actually there. It was a projection. Xenut Sul is back in the room, and he's very real. And the lights come on, and what they reveal makes Numeon scream. And he goes, my brothers! And he says, rows of metal slabs fill the chamber, closing the ranks on a battlefield. His legionaries from 3 different legions, Blood Angels, Iron Hands, and Salamanders, are strapped down exactly like he is and beaten just as badly. Basically, a processing line of captured legionaries being broken down one after another. Similar to what Courage was trying to do to Vulkan.
Right.
And Xenut Sul says, torture room. Have no fear, Salamander. Yours is only just beginning. Yeah, these word bearers are real nasty guys. Numeon but tears one arm free, though, and Xenut puts him down with a strike to the jaw, knocks him out. He says, man, relax. And darkness closes in, and he hears the klaxons start blaring. Wheel, wheel, wheel. And Xenut Sul's voice shouting orders that says, all hands, repel boarders, they have found us. Kill any Ultramarines who set foot aboard this ship. So there's a Miglio's team aboarding this ship. that we talked about in the beginning. And this is not the first ship that they're on. This is another one they chased down.
Right.
So they're fighting these guys, and they're getting caught up in these bottlenecks in different systems. And Miglio says, Apothecarion, do we have wounded friendlies on board? And the sergeant says, negative, theoretical as prisoners. The word bearers are not patching them up, Vitus. And Naviglio understands what that means. He says, we need to get them off the ship and send it screaming back to hell. So they reach the Apothecarion too late, and Naviglio comes back out and shakes his head at the others inside. He says, dead brother, all 53 of them. I finished off two myself. They could have not have lived. So, but one problem is that all these slabs, all these guys that they find, that one slab is empty, and there's blood trailing from it to the door, that someone got out, someone escaped. And Navius says, so where is this errant prisoner going? He could be anywhere on the ship. He said, I'd find the one responsible for what happened to my comrades, and I'd kill him. So I'm thinking, it's like, this guy obviously broke free and is going to kill whoever this is.
Right.
So it is Numeon, of course. He broke free, and he drags himself back down through this grate, and this Iron Hands legionary who was there has basically, his bionics were torn out entirely, his legs are gone, and he's basically this husk of a man on this thing. And the legionary says, don't lose hope, Numeon. He grabs him with his right hand. They're missing two fingers, and the left wrist is just to stop. He says, kill them for us. Numeon says, I will. And Numeon punches through his ribcage and stops his heart because he's like, look, you're not going to come back from this. I'm going to put you in a dreadnought, but like, not really, So I'm going to give you a little mercy here.
Yeah.
So outside the chamber, the ship is so vast that Numeon's mind is, he's like, okay, where do I go? He's like, wait, I can figure this out. I've been on many of these ships before. So it is a smaller ship as well. So it takes, you can get kind of accustomed to it, but he has no weapons. But he wants to get his little hammer back. The hammer he took away, I need to get that back, which means he needs to find Xenut Sul, which means he needs to get to the bridge. So he finds this scavenged bolt pistol and a combat knife, and his hands are shaking that he can't really even aim the pistol. And he goes back to something Vulkan used to tell him. He says, it is our will, our determination that lets us fight when others cannot. It is our will that gives us the strength to self-sacrifice and endure beyond hope. And he can picture the words clearly enough, but he can't hear his Vulcan's voice saying them anymore. But he should be able to. He's a spaceman. He can remember everything, but he can't remember his voice. And like, it starts to scare him. He's like, oh no, this is not good. So he turns the knife blade down. Basically, he's going to throw it at something. And he finds a single word bearer guarding a bridge, and he hits him with it. And he says to him, Vulkan lives. And
does he actually?
He hits him with one of those, right? Vulkan lives. Vulkan lives. He's like, I don't know, the guy just killed everybody. He just said Vulkan lives all the time.
Vulkan lives assassin over here.
Right. It's just like, I think it was a salamander. You think?
No, really?
Yeah. So, but before he can throw this knife at this guy and kill him, the guard's visor bursts open in a bunch of gore. And Numeon's like, wait, I didn't do that. All of a sudden, he doesn't stop to figure out who, and he starts running. And he makes it past, there's a hidden Ultramarine sniper team that watched him go, then says he's going to get himself killed. So, well. And the door opens up on Xenut Sul standing alone to command dais, back turned, and a bunch of human corpses at his feet. He's already killed his own ship's crew rather than risk them talking. He's like, I know you guys are way too weak-minded to get captured. And Numeon says, and where's the sigil? And Xenut Sul says, my honor forbids you from taking my own life, but your interrogators will not force me to betray my legion. Numeon realizes too late that Xenut Sul wasn't talking to him at all. A full Ultramarine squad is already on the bridge, weapons raised, and their sergeant, bareheaded, blonde, young-faced, but war-hardened. And Numeon says, I am Pirate Captain Artillus Numeon, and I claim this prisoner for Vulkan and what he carries. And the sergeant says, Vulkan? I haven't heard that name in a while, at least unhappily. Vulkan? You mean like Vulkan lives?
The guy who's alive?
You mean the guy who lives forever? And the sergeant speaks to him, and it says, Numeon, you're in no condition for a fight. You're naked, you have a knife, and like a gun with 2 shots in it. And Numeon says, no, I need to get that sigil back. And the sergeant says, I know it, let us right to you. And they basically get Xenut Sul bound for transport. They said, we're going to kill you. We're going to get questioned by someone called Lord Praeto. And Numeon says, where are you taking him? He says, where else? Macragge. And Numeon says, oh, well, thanks to you for saving me. He says, what is your name? He says, Thiel. Aeonid Thiel. So Aeonid Thiel's now a sergeant. This is the real one, not the one that tried to kill Guilliman.
Right.
Yes, and he looks like that with his cool red helmet. Is there any other characters I said that I should bring the name of?
Maybe the word bearer?
I guess this is what the Unburdened kind of look like when they kind of demonize. Okay. I mean, that thing does look pretty intense, but still. 5 custodians. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah. All right. Here's a picture of Narek doing his apothecary stuff. But yeah. So, Numeon goes aboard this ship called the Defiance of Calth, and he is getting treated for his wounds, and he says, I'm fine, I'll heal up on my own. So he leaves early. And he goes into this place and he says, these are my quarters, and it engraves borrowed carapace armor with Nocturnian sigils, so much it looks like an art piece. Basically borrows armor from them, and it says, I need armor again. So he basically makes it his own. And he's marked in a training circle in charcoal with braziers burning around it. And Thiel walks in on him and says, are you trying to burn down my ship, Martellus? And Thiel says, that's not actually why I'm here. I'm here to ask you, like, if you could show me the ritual of combat to the rest of my crew. And Numeon says, no, don't worry about it. He says, you wouldn't understand it. And but he notices that the crimson slash marks every one of Thiel's warriors' helms. He says, I see that on your helms and faces. What does it denote? He says, it isn't pride, Thiel explains. He says, I ran scenarios pitting legionaries against one another, trying to determine how to defeat them. It was before the rebellion was known. And he says, it kind of brings the whole thing of when the fake Aenid Thiel tried to kill him, Guilliman. So it's kind of also a weird thing, too, if it's like, we kind of do this thing now to paint it that way.
Yeah, distinguish themselves.
In a way, kind of. Because I think the fake one didn't have that. So that was also, too.
Okay.
Numeon basically goes up to him and he says, whoa, were you still a traitor? And Thiel says, another legionary bearing my name and facsimile of my armor infiltrated my lord's residency with 9 others and attempted to murder him. Alpha Legion. Imagine they succeeded, though. That was so crazy. But anyways, not to get on a huge tangent, but it's the interesting question. Like, what if they succeeded by killing Dorn? And what if they succeeded with killing Guilliman? Like, wow, Alpha Legion really just doing the numbers.
Right. I mean, there's other ones like that. Like, I know they tried to, Ravengard tried to shoot Fulgrim, right, a while ago.
Oh, yeah, that sniper, yeah.
Yeah.
The demon kind of was like, oh, yeah, so that would have... Yeah. I think it's like he basically looked to the left, right? No,
yeah,
just caught his ear, and his ear was, it's all like that. So interesting. So Numeon is like, wow, that's crazy that they did that they can do that. And Numeon says nothing is what it seems anymore. I guess we can't even trust each other, not even ourselves. So Numeon presses Thiel. I was like, why are you actually here? Like, obviously you're not here to just do training. And Thiel says, I'm trying to capture a librarian named Titus Prado that can pull that preacher that was talking his location straight out of Xenut Sul's captured mind. And then he looks behind Numeon, the sigil and shrines built up, and he says, memorials for the dead, Vulkan lives, said it. I think of it as a shrine to honor him, before which I can reassert my oaths. And then Thiel tells him something. He says, the sigil carries a transmitter signal, and it's the only reason that we found you. He says, without that transmitter signal, you would have been lost. And then Thiel says, what he actually came to say, he says, Vulkan is dead. He died in Macragge, and that's why I'm taking you back there. And Numeon says, no, he doesn't. He lives.
Oh, this can't be.
What? He lives, though. And he says, did you see the body himself? And Thiel says, no, but this is what I was told. He says, I have no reason to doubt it. And he says, he is dead, brother. And Numeon says, do not mistake my Promethean creed for grief. I believe Vulkan is alive. Every time I see his sigil and feel the warmth of his captured forge heat in my hands, I know this to be true. And Thiel says, well, he lies in a state, a cold corpse in Macragge's deepest mausoleum. His sons maintain a vigil over his body. And Numeon says, no way. I gotta go see. And he says, the preacher's a better liar than you. And Numeon said, then is your knowledge that his father, Sergeant, Vulkan lives? No depth.
I can't remember what game it is, but it's one of the Borderlands games where they have the one psycho guy that just says the same phrase over and over again.
Is the one you could play as, or
no, not the one you can play. It's one. I think it's Borderlands. There's a character that just
I can't remember.
Yells the same phrase over and over again. And I feel like
I keep thinking of shooting McFace or whatever. Shoot me in the face.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, Vulkan lives. Hey, should I tell you that Vulkan lives? Yes, you told everybody.
Hey,
what you say?
By the way.
Hey, heads up, Vulkan lives. And he's super dead. I don't know how to tell you this. You don't see Iron Hand saying this. Ferris lives. No, dude, he's dead.
No, bro, we all saw him.
He's dead. So Thiel leaves him alone, and he says, "Look, yeah, I guess you're getting a little mad, so I won't press you anymore." And he says, "Cling to it, hope you must, Salamander, for none here wishes it were true more than I. But cast aspirations of my honor again, even in grief, and I will give you a salutary lesson with that gladius you labor over." She did. Don't test me. So he leaves me alone. So back to Bethusa Narek, who's alive. Narek lives. He has been beaten, shackled, and physically probed for days, but he does not say anything different. He spits out a tooth at Sergeant Valentius, and he says, "That was a solid hit. I actually felt that one. You should be proud." So he's messing with him. And watch from the shadows is Titus Prado, who's his librarian. Do you have a picture of Titus Prado? I thought I did. I guess I don't. I probably showed him before, but he's the guy that wears, I showed you, he has a helmet, the librarian rig.
Yeah.
He's Ultramarine. Yeah. So he's there, and he's doing his thing psychically, because before he couldn't do it because the whole council in IKEA, but now Guilliman's like, yeah, do whatever you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
So he's dug through Narek's mind. He's come up with nothing. And he goes up to him and says, who do you serve, Narek? And Narek says, I serve the word, as you already know. Whom do you serve, your Primarch or your Emperor? Which is like both. What?
Yeah.
It's kind of like a hierarchy system.
Yeah.
So it's like saying, do you serve your supervisor or your manager? It's like, my supervisor is extension of the manager. So
Yes.
And so both, like, that didn't work. So something in Narek's eyes, though, starts to reel. So he starts to get as real. And he warns Fredo that Macragge itself isn't as safe as you believe. Whatever's hunting you is already somewhere in your own streets. Basically, he puts it, I think your city's not as safe as you lead others to believe. I think you know my legion or one of its allies is coming for me and might already be abroad in your streets. So not like hers, but similar to hers.
Right.
And Fredo ends the session. He says, look, we're not anything more out of this guy. He's just being crazy. But Narek finally answers one question he's dodged the whole time. He says, what do you actually serve? And Narek says, when I touched the Fulgurite, I was given a glimpse of his power, of the Emperor's power. The word I serve is that he on earth is his divine being, a god who claims to be mortal. That is the truth I serve. So he is weirdly loyalist, but in the way, the classic word bearer way.
Right.
Before the whole monarchia thing happened.
Right. He still is word bearer where he's like, the Emperor's a god, but
Emperor's like, so totally God. And like, I proved it. I touched the Fulgurite.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Sure. You know, he's talking about like, oh, my legion's still out there and everything. I know he's like talking about the ones that are like actively looking for him, but also there are still word bearers on Macragge, right? Like in the tunnels or whatever, that whole
Calth.
war. Oh, okay.
Yes. So that's Calth with the underground war.
Yeah.
When they left him behind. No, yeah, that's Calth. They were still doing the whole thing there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So, but no, there are word bearers just around in the system because, I mean, they sneak around. You know, it's a big system. Very easy to sneak through. Like we saw with the Alpha Legion, you know?
Mm.
So, Valentia says, I hope Guilliman will let us kill this guy already. And Valentia says, but this one slew a Primarch or had some part in his murder. Surely there can be little value left to learn. And Titus Fredo says, it may not be his decision, brother. Valentia doesn't get it. And Fredo lays it up for him and says, who do you think? Sanguinius or Emperor Macragge? Because Sanguinius is Emperor now. Guilliman can't kill him. It's up to Sanguinius. And then Valentia says, but this is Ultramar. And Titus Fredo says, no, brother, it's Imperium Secundus now. Come on, keep up, wait, man. Come on,
man.
You live here too.
Read the newsletter.
Yeah, like you send it out like every week. We have a new newsletter, and you go, oh, it's just spam. It's not spam. It's very important stuff. So Narek is right. You know, we talked about before especially with the Dark Angels, where they put in the martial law because they want to get cursed. People are not very happy about that.
Yeah.
So, but Vulkan's presence on Macragge is only revealed after his death, and the fact that the Fulgurite killed him, his exact weapon traitor could carry to the planet, has been kept from his own sons entirely, to avoid even like for them to like be like, you know, like this is even more dangerous than we thought. And Fredo isn't sure that the silence is right, but he's, you know, let's think about it. And the Fulgurite is still in Vulkan. That spear is still in his chest. Like they can't get it out. It's like wedged in there for some reason.
Right.
So the sky over Macragg's capital is thick with ships, refugee freighters from the 500 worlds that got caught in the Shadow Crusade are trying to get here. And Inviglio is escorting Numeon down. Secundus, you mentioned, it still needs much in the way of building. Inviglio says more like rebuilding. And Numeon's like, interesting, rebuilding. So something happened. And the ship descends through this whole setup here. And he sees one banner in particular, a Drake's head, which is Vulkan's own flag, flying at half-mast because he's dead. And nobody says anything about it. And on the ground, Thiel says one thing. He says, both my deeds and my words towards you were unworthy, Brother Sergeant. I meant no dishonor. And they do a little forearm thing, you know, the Roman thing.
Yeah. And
Numeon tries to return Thiel's Gladius, the one he was training with, and Thiel's like, keep it. The way you were slogging that Gladius around, you need the practice. Ooh, got him. And Numeon unclasps thing that he has and hands it over to him. It says, now we are allies. And the ramp opens and Thiel says something to him. He says, I didn't see it before, but I see it now. I'll hope as you hope, Salamander, for a miracle. Vulkan lives.
Oh my. He's converting people.
It's a plague. So Numeon walks down the ramp and they greet him, right? They're like, hey, how you doing? You know? And there's also a White Scar here too, somehow. They're like, hey, bro, I'm also here.
Just hanging out.
Yeah. He called me back, but kind of too far away. So, but he notices that there's one figure in plain gray armor that catches his eye for a moment before vanishing back in the crowd. He's like, wait a minute, who's that? Gray armor. Grey Knight? Those don't exist yet. And then Zydos breaks from the gathering and pulls Numeon into a full embrace. I think of a picture of Zydos here. He's also a salamander. Here he is with a big hammer. And Var'kir follows, and they, you know, they're like, oh, brothers, you know. So it's a very small group of salamanders still left. And Numeon, remember, is the first captain, so they really want to see him. Numeon says, where is our father? And so they take him there. And so across the city, Thiel and Inviglio deliver Xenut Sul's casket to a keep for Praetor to work on. Now, Xenut Sul isn't dead, but they've locked him in like a box.
Okay.
And through the casket's report, Thiel watches the prisoner before handing him over. And there's a metal brace jammed into his mouth to keep him from speaking because his eyes are open and unblinking, lips moving away, trying to talk anyways. Basically, man, shut up. But what he doesn't see is once that he has handed over to Inviglio, that Xenut Sul is smiling in the casket. So obviously he's getting what he wants here. So Numeon refuses every offer of rest. He's like, I want to see the body. Show me the body. And Zydo tells him, he says, Guilliman intends to keep the Salamanders of Macragge until the warp storm clears. And he says, Numeon says, no son of Nocturne is bound by the will of another Primarch. We answer to Lord Vulkan and him alone. It's like, that's not even true, dude. You're Imperium Secundus now.
Right.
You're just Sanguinius. So the vault is cold and dark, and there's the memorial flame that is barely lit. And Numeon says, you let them keep him in this place? And Var'kir waves Zydos back, giving Numeon the space to approach the casket. And Numeon, is getting ready. And he says, Vulkan lives.
I said, he's getting ready to say it.
Vulkan lives. But he puts his hand on the edge, and he says it again. And then, like a question. Like, Vulkan lives? Question mark? And he looks inside. He says, what is the meaning of this? Speak now. And then Zydos and Var'kir rush to look. And Zydos looks into it, and Var'kir shakes his head. The glass is sealed, nothing broken, cut or forced, but it's empty. Vulkan is gone. Does Vulkan live?
Does he live?
Does he live for real? I wish that meme where it's like, then who was found? If I was here, then you were here, then Vulkan lives. And Var'kir says, he was here, Numeon, I swear on my blood. I swear on my mama, he was here. I swear on God, please. And Numeon marches out into the Convictus Cubilicarium. We're just saying words now.
Yeah.
With Zydos and Var'kir. And he interrupts the court with the 3 Primarchs.
Yeah.
And Sanguinius sitting there as Emperor. And Guilliman is sitting there too. And the Lion is also there. And Numeon says, Vulkan lives.
Oh.
Look at the Sanguinius. And Guilliman says, I saw my brother's cold body with my own eyes, Numeon. He is dead. And the Var'kir says, then how, my lord, do you explain the fact that he no longer lies in state? And Guilliman concedes, he's like, yeah, it's empty. But look, Numeon, you have a false hope here. And Numeon says, what is this place if not found on that very principle? He says, oh, okay. First of all, that was rude. Oh, okay. Yeah, well, smart guy. So he says, I demand the search be led by somebody other than the Invictus Guard. People who probably lost his body in the first place. And he's basically pressed further and says, you failed to keep the tomb secure. And Sanguinius says to step in and says, alive or dead, I swear to you, we will find Vulkan. Your father will be returned, and if necessary, reparation made for this negligence. And Numeon asks for one more thing. He says that we will be the ones that conduct the search, and that whoever spreads a false claim of Vulkan's death, answer for it if he's found alive, because Vulkan lives. And Sanguinius says, I promise you, if you have deceived and Vulkan does indeed still draw breath, recompense will be made. Satisfied for now, Numeon takes his attention and says, and when he's returned to us, we're leaving Macragge. And the Lion says, leaving? Where do you think you will go? You get that big Ruinstorm out there, I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah.
The whole reason we have this whole thing set up here is because we can't leave. Come on, dummy.
Do they have a plan for that? They're like, we're going to leave. It's like, how?
I mean, we'll see.
Yeah.
So they start a whole search. Guilliman is committing legionaries in Circe to score over, to check over, even though Numeon said it's our job. And nobody's finding anything. I mean, not even a scuff mark on the casket. It's still sealed. No, we broke it open. No glass is broken. No, it's what happened here. No forced entry. No trace of Courage. Everybody's like, what if it did Courage? No, wasn't him. Obviously it wasn't him. You definitely see it the next day.
Yeah.
Even Titus Fido uses his like mind stuff. He's like, there's no warp energy here either. So it wasn't teleported. Hold on, it's teleported, but it wasn't like demons didn't show up and go, oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
So, but one Salamander keeps coming back to the vault anyway. Var'kir has visited every day and is kind of looking around, and Titus says, what are you hoping to find? And Var'kir says, I doubt my presence will tip the scales. I'm looking for something, however. I came here hoping to find Numeon's belief, his certainty in Vulkan's resurrection. And he asks him directly whether or not you actually witnessed the healing and return from death. And Kratos says, I didn't see that happen exactly, but I was close to feel something to start. And Titus Fido says, when Vulkan arrived in Macragge, he was dead, utterly, not wounded, not even close to death, dead. Autopsy had been ordered. The Primarch due for vivisection when everything changed. Vulkan came out breathing, flesh healing, everything restored except for one thing, his sanity. Var'kir says. And Titus Fido says, yes, his mind was fractured, raving. I tried to enter it to find some means of reassembly, but it was like stepping into a sea of shards, glass cutting at my mental flesh. I had to withdraw. And Var'kir tells him something that he's never said to anybody else. He says, I believe that Vulkan is dead. I do not think he has walked from his tomb. I merely want to find him and lay him to rest in the earth of Nocturne. And Praeto says, there's something you need to know. Is your right a salamander? That Vulkan lives.
Say on.
Say it. You must. So 6 days later, almost a week, Numeon is in the ramparts of the Hepnon, which is a coastal fortress, guarding the approach into the Civitas, which is their city. He's sitting there just staring at the waves. It's this kind of ocean thing, which is really kind of a tangent here, but it's interesting to think about. So many people and I think it's actually in Horus Rising, which you're reading. There's a part with the Remembrancer, and they talk about they get to go to this planet that has an ocean. And some of them have never seen the ocean before because all of the Earth, they've never known Terra probably, and the planet they're born on probably is a hive city. You know what I mean? So it's like, for one of the go get see ocean, it's just such a magic, like, whoa, that's like so crazy. And yeah, it's all part of the Horse Ride. You'll get to it though, but anyways, but yeah, it's interesting that the people who live in the 500 worlds of Ultramar are like regular Earth people. You know what I mean? Like they live like we do now on Earth. So it's like it doesn't suck. And that's why when Conrad Kerr shows up and all that stuff happens, they're like, oh, come on. You're ruining it. It's awesome. But that was the point, right? So 6 days of nothing. And Zydos finds him, and Numeon says, how have we not yet found him? And just over 60 salamanders have washed up on Macragge since the storm scattered them around. And until Numeon arrived, the only light any of them had was the Pharaohs itself. But his own belief lit a flame in them that Vulkan lives, and every one of them is combing the Civitas right now on his word alone. And Zydos says, you are hope, brother. Vulkan lives. Numeon says, he lives and he is here. And Zydos asks to hold the sigil. And Zydos says, neither a tool to forge with nor a weapon to kill his enemies. Numeon says, it's a symbol. And Numeon is carrying new gear now, forged fresh by a smith named Gargo. He has Drake green armor, scaled, a dragon-toothed blade called Dracaros, a serpent-headed bolt pistol named Basilisk. Basically, he's all dragoned out. Because he used to have a great Drake mantle that he used to wear that was from an actual dragon on his planet that he killed and wore the skin of. And Zydos says, don't worry, you'll find another beast to flay one day. So Zydos says, why won't you speak to them? Referring to the other salamanders. And he says, I'm not their leader, Zytos. Vulkan is, and he will be with us again soon. Besides, you have led these wars proudly in the absence of any other. And Zydos pushes back, and he's like, I guess. And Var'kir is climbing the stairs of the rampart, and he says, I may have learned of a way to find our father. And Numeon says, tell us. So, back to Xenut Sul. His cell is meant to feel inescapable. His adamantine fetters, Pharaoh Creek walls, iron-bound doors, several layers below keep summit. He is locked in tight. But none of it holds him for more than a few minutes once the guard's footsteps are gone. His limbs go strange, elongating, twisting like a weird reflection in like weird glass. And he slides out of the chains built for, a space marine, but he kind of morphs his limbs to like go through it like a snake. But he was never actually a prisoner. He let himself get taken using this Numeon sigil as the bait. And Xenut Sul says, your name, the promise of something further, so they would keep me alive. You were right that the blacksmith told him would call out to them. And he draws a long talon down his forearm, opening a cut that bleeds something thicker and darker than blood, and it pulls at his feet and rises in the shape of a skull, and then a face, and the preacher's face. It's a person named Quor Gallek. Quor Gallek is kind of a picture of him there. It's kind of a blurry picture, but it's the best I got. So Quor Gallek is the preacher, and he's reaching through blood communion, which is a ritual thing they do. It's war magics.
Right.
And Xenut Sul says he is here, just as Barbaros Ka and Olka's told described. Quor Gallek confirms. He's like, the Ultramarines suspect nothing, right? He's like, yeah, of course. They think I'm in prison forever. He says, don't even know my what I'm doing here or my actual mission. And Quor Gallek says, kill him, Xenut Sul. Wrench every morsel of truth from your torturing of his soul and then cast his essence into the warp. I promise to feast, and the next act can begin. So the target, he's not there for Ultramarines. He's there for Berthusza Narek, who's hidden somewhere in the same place. But Xenut Sul asks him one more thing before this image fades. It says, the Fulgurite, God Killer, a weapon that can slay a Primarch, even the Emperor. And he says also like why that matters, because like if they can get that, Berthusza Narek knows that Fulgurite is, it means they can get it and then they have the power to kill the Emperor in their hands, supposedly.
Right.
When he's alone, Xenut Sul says something to himself. He says, I will cleanse your dirty little soul, Berthusza Narek. So why do you say dirty little soul? Wait, weird. What a creep. So eventually, a Thunderhawk rushes the Salamanders to the Eastern Keep, and Xenos is furious the moment he lands, learning that Narek's been in the Ultramarines' custody for months without any word to them. He says, our father's murder is one of yourselves, and you do not see fit to tell us? Which, they don't actually know who it was. They thought it was Narek, but it also could have been John Grammaticus, remember?
Right.
So, but Numeon doesn't waste any time arguing. He says, don't worry, I'm not going to kill Narek, not yet anyways. And feels like, all right, I trust you. And he leads Numeon and Var'kir down to the keep. And Numeon says, I made a solemn vow. I won't break it. I won't kill him, not yet. So eventually, Thiel gets a message, and that 6 guards below all Ultramarines, and none of them are checking in. And Numeon says, he's loose, isn't he? And they find a first body, something alcove, throat torn out, and Biglio recognizes the wound immediately. He says, unburdened. So it is one of the Galborback type of people that are here.
Mhm.
So every cell weighed down is the same deal. World Eater prisoner gutted, another legionary torn limb from limb, a third strung up by his own entrails. It's a brutal mess down here. So I guess maybe these guys could kill 5 custodians. I still don't believe it, though.
I guess.
Whatever.
Maybe.
Vulkan lives, custodians live. So, and they run for it, like, that we know what's going on here. So they run, the door's already unlocked, and they catch Xenut Sul, and he says, believe it or not, this is not how I wanted matters to play out. And he's mid-conversation with somebody, and the figure lifts his head, and Numeon, he has a sword out, and he says, you're not Methuselah Narek, where is he? And Xenut says, isn't that the very question? He's like, we're all looking for this guy, where'd he go? And when he starts attacking them, he's like, obviously they're going to try to kill him. But Xenut Sul is faster and stronger than them, right? He's all demoned up.
Right.
And he does this like massive swing of a hand, knocks him away like pins, knocks Var'kir out of the cell, and he starts getting even bigger and denser, like more demon power coming through him, basically turning into Xavier Jubala's whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Thiel's like, kill it. They're like, what do you think we're doing? And Thiel cuts his hand off at the wrist, but doesn't slow him down. Basically, fleshy tendrils burst out, and then throw Thiel across the room, cracks his armor open, and then Biglio gets knocked down as well. And Numeon sits there with Dracaris in one hand, the Gladius in the other, and he says, Vulkan lives. I think it's Tourette's.
At this point,
I don't think he can help it, actually.
Yeah. I'm wondering if the Vulkan lives counter is higher on this episode or the other one, because I feel like
It's definitely getting pretty bad for this episode.
this one is starting off strong.
Now, obviously, I threw in a couple there that he didn't say, but still,
Yeah.
it's
Even then.
and we're not even done with the episode yet.
Yes.
So Xenut Sul laughs at him. He's just like, "Oh, Vulkan lives." Say it again. And the tendrils basically turn to a mace of meat that smashes a hole through the cell. And Numeon finds, he ducks that hit, and he finds a gap and stabs him with the Gladius. And then he drags Dracaris down through Xenut Sul's shoulder like a saw, basically starts cutting through his arm, all that meat. But the problem is Xenut Sul recovers fast enough to turn to Biglio, who gets frozen for a half second. Look at this demon. We're kind of having a flashback to the same way he saw another guy get torn apart by one of these types of demons, where it's too much. And it says, and Xenut Sul says, it was no way for a warrior to die. And talons punch clean through Biglio's chest. He does not get back up. Drops him just like that. And Numeon goes for Xenut Sul in fury and gets choked down to his knees for it. Tendrils wrapped around his throat. His own sword knocked out of his hands. He's wounded badly. And Xenut Sul says, I will not stop until every legionary in this hole is dead. No amount of death will sate me. And Numeon's hand finds a sigillite of spell.
I already know what he's going to say.
And he says, Vulkan lives. And Xenut Sul freezes at the sight of it. Because remembering, had the same vision that Biglio just had. And pause him long enough for Zydos, Var'kir, and 2 other Ultramarines open fire in the corridor, blasting meat off of this demon here. But he survives it. And the flesh starts reforming. So, maybe 5 custodians, maybe, I guess. Maybe if they got the jump on him.
With prep time.
With prep time, it's, with demon time and prep time and warp energy, anything is possible. So Thiel gets back to his feet and drives his longsword straight through where he thinks the heart should be. And he says, let's try that again for Biglio. And a second volley tears through Xenut Sul, and Numeon closes the distance and finishes it with Dracaris, throwing his words back, Xenut Sul's own words back at him. He says, you are weak because you are impure. You don't have the wit to see it. Ooh, got him. Cuts his head off, and Xenut Sul collapses forward and does not move, and he kind of dissolves into a meat. Thiel whips his blade off, but he's pretty sad that, obviously Biglio just got mushed. And they kind of lock down the keep, make sure whatever they can clean up. And Numeon says, Methuselah Narek is gone, and not by the hand of our enemy. It's like,
yeah. I'm surprised.
He didn't say Vulkan lives.
I'm surprised that none of that. I'm waiting for it. I'm like, I know
it's predictable.
He resisted.
He's like, I could say it, but I won't. And Biglio lives. So the Salamanders have claimed a district of the Civitas for themselves, just by moving in, right? And they call it the Ash Quarter, which is crazy. Ash, because they're fire, right? To them that gather in the sword hall, lit by braziers, and deciding what happened next. Quor Zaven, a pyroclast, who has been pissed since Isfon 5, wants to know if we even have a working ship. And they said, it's got Egan Gargo, and I think I have a picture of Gargo here. There he is. Little Gargo right there. And he says the Charybdis waits in the dock, and Zathan is unimpressed. Gargo, who is the guy who made Numeon's new armor, vouches for the ship. He says, it's a good ship. Hey, don't be rude. And Kolo Odyssean, who's a shipmaster, is also trusting. And Var'kir backs him. He says, there are kin, Zathan. We must trust them or trust no one. And there are empty seats at the table. And Zydo stands beside it and lays out the actual choice in front of him and says, stay on Macragge and fold in the Guilliman's crusade, or have to leave to keep fighting wherever loyalists still stand against Horus. And Zydo says, we are the pirate and we must endure for Vulkan. And Zathan shoots down the idea of staying outright, saying it's nothing more than political theater for Guilliman's benefit. And most of the people agree with him. Like, yeah, you're right. That's a valid point. Zathan says a political appointment and no more than that. I have no wish for what few Salamanders remain to be part of some symbolic propaganda for Macragge. And Var'kir offers a third option. He says, Nocturne. But you have to go through the Ruinstorm, and they say that's suicide. Like, you're not going to get through there. And Zathan says, listen to me. Vulkan is gone. Ash and smoke. You said so yourself, Chaplain. And Zydo says, Numeon believes. And Zathan says, all I know of Artellus Numeon is he was once a great warrior. Ooh, he's calling him out. And Zathan presses at him. He says, look at the points at the empty seat. He says, Numeon isn't even here. He says, a leader who does not want to lead. And where is he? Our strength gathers, trying to determine our best fate, and he is not to be found. And everybody's like, hey, where is he? Well, I don't know either. So Var'kir says he grieves Zathan. That's where he is, mourning the dead. But Vulkan lives. What the heck?
Yeah.
I'd like to actually.
I'd like to think that they're like, oh, he used to be a great warrior because he's just like sitting in the corner rocking like
Vulkan lives. Vulkan lives. Yeah, I don't know. He lost his mind. It's weird. So Numeon walks through the memorial gardens alone, and just granite and cold marble for him. All of a sudden, he hears a voice, and it says bleak words for bleak environs. He draws a sword out. He says, whoa, what's that? And it's a lion steps out. And he says, I came to speak with you. Consider this a formal introduction then. I wanted to speak to Legion Master of the Salamanders alone. And Numeon says, I have no claim to that title. And the lion says, yours is the only claim, Captain. So the lion kind of gives him like, what are you trying to do here? What's your idea? And Numeon says, I don't wish to become a political pawn in whatever is happening here. I have even less tolerance for it than Sergeant Thiel. And Lion says, many feel as you do. Some may say we were too quick to give up on Terra. I believe you are someone who does not give up on lost causes easily either. And our lost causes are sometimes all we have to strive for. And Numeon keeps kind of gets him and says, you don't agree with it. Obviously, we talk about the lion, how he has whole problems with this too.
Mm-hmm.
And the lion doesn't say anything. His silence speaks for itself. And the lion says, I meant no disrespect, but be mindful of who you are speaking to. And the lion kind of goes back into the shadows. And Numeon says one more thing. He says, and what of Caliban then? And a thing kind of goes across the lion's face for like half a second. What did you just? Okay. Ooh. And the lion says, more for my brother Vulkan, as I shall, but don't expect to find peace. And he's gone before Numeon can even ask what that even means. And he's kind of thinking, he's like, our lost cause are sometimes all we have to strive for. And he's like, Vulkan didn't walk out of that casket. He simply isn't anywhere to be found because there's nowhere left for him to be. And Numeon says, I've been denied everything. Vulkan lives. I swear. And eventually, Numeon climbs a black basalt stairway to a plateau holding a memorial to Isfan 5. Names carved into stone, many still blank, still unconfirmed. And above it looms a massive golden statue of Ferris Manus, hammer raised, sculpted with a fury that the stone couldn't fully hold. And Numeon almost laughs, imagine what the real Gorgon would say about being memorialized so quietly. Because Ferris Manus didn't care about statues.
Mm-hmm.
Past the statue, the garden turned into a more regular dark marble, no trees, no foliage, just skull-wreathed columns in the dead. And the grief finally catches up with Numeon here. He drops to one knee. He says, embers, that is all we are, and that's all we can become in the end. And when he lifts his head, one of the distant statues seems to be watching him. And he says, something is wrong with that statue. Too familiar to be carved stone. He moves towards it, and he sees this seated figure on a plinth. And he sees what's clenched against his chest. And he says, Father. Vulkan lives. So Xenut Sul's death rips through Quor Gallek like a physical wound because they had that blood connection. And several once he comes up, but he kind of got everything, the information from Xenut Sul enough from that interaction. Mm-hmm. That Barthus Narek is not necessarily anymore, that he was freed by some third party Quor Gallek cannot identify. So he says, Xenut Sul, how deeply you must have sunk your claws into him. Basically talking about like how effective he's been with Numeon,
mm-hmm.
even though not really physically.
Right.
And Quor Gallek talks to the essence of the warp, and he says, you have to wait, my malicious creature. And he talks to the shipmaster, says, bring us to the edge of Macragge's monitors and engage broad sensorium sweeps. And the ship says, what are we seeking, Quor Gallek? And he says, a large vessel, Salamanders. And on the ship, that Quor Gallek carries cargo that you don't know what it is yet, but it's something very weird.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, Vulkan has been founded. Numeon is standing with Zytos, Zathan, and Var'kir, waiting on Guilliman. And Zathan says, every brick intended to remind us of the 13th Legion preeminence. And Numeon asks, who are we? And Zytos says, united in this fight, Vulkan is with us. You are with us, Numeon. It's time to go home. And Guilliman enters alone, unusually light on weapons for a Primarch, and greets them. Says, I am greatly relieved that Lord Vulkan has returned to us, and I swear to you all that everything shall be done to uncover how this happened. So he's still dead, Vulkan.
Mm-hmm.
It's just his body was sitting next to the statue. It's like, who put him there?
Weird.
And he's still holding his hammer. And they found out, that hammer teleported in there on accident. Of course.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's one of those dumb reveals. You're like, yeah, all right, whatever.
What?
He's like, I guess. I thought it'd be something cooler than that. Numeon doesn't argue, but he says, but yet the one complicit in his murder is not. Where is Narek? And Guilliman says, look, we're trying to find him too. And Numeon says, look, it doesn't matter anymore. We're leaving, and we're taking Vulkan home to Nocturne. Says, once committed, a salamander does not balk or turn. That's why our loyalty can never be questioned. And Guilliman says, let me and you talk one-on-one real quick. And Guilliman talks to him. And he says, a refuge, I want to savor it before it is gone forever. He stands at the window looking at the whole, and he asks Numeon, what do you see? And Numeon says, I see splendor, the Empire's crown. And Guilliman says, look closer. And the more he looks at it, you can see these colonnades being torn out for armor bulwarks, landing fields expanded for war fleets, factorums burning night and day. Basically, this place can turn into like a factory.
Mm-hmm.
And Guilliman says, I have the greatest standing army amongst the legions by most reckonings. I have allies in 2 other Primarchs, here in my soul, with the majority of their sworn warriors. I am turning my beloved Macragge into a fortress, and even then I still don't know if it will be enough. And Numeon says, you're trying to convince us to stay. And Guilliman says, I am. And Guilliman tells him, basically what people start calling him the Avenging Son. He says, I like that name. It's apt. I swear to you that vengeance is what we will seek for your father, my brother. I shall not rest until every wrong done unto us, all of us, is repaid. Stay, Artellus, stay and become part of this. Here on Macragge is where you are needed. You would be a symbol of unity, of shared purpose, of Imperium Secundus. And Numeon looks away and says, I cannot. I have to take my father back to Nocturne. And Guilliman is like, oh, okay, fine, whatever. I guess, fine. And he actually kind of says to him, that Vulkan lives? I see a corpse, not my brother. Teleportation anomaly or not, I do not believe he rose from death and ended up in the memorial gardens for you to find, Numeon. And Numeon says, and that is where I differ, my lord, because Vulkan lives. So I would have your blessing for the 66 to leave Ultramar, but I do not need it. And Guilliman says, you'll have it, as well as an escort to the edge of the system. So they all climb aboard the Charybdis, which is not a good ship. I mean, it's pretty beat up, but it is what it is. Because it got attacked by 18th Legion word bearers on the way here.
Mm-hmm.
So back from Isfahan 5, so it's been a while.
Right.
And Thiel says, it is an ugly ship. And Numeon says, I remember declining Lord Guilliman's offer of escort. And Thiel says, whatever good fortune still exists in the galaxy, I wish all of it finds you, Artellus. I'd be lying if I said I believe as you do, but the fact you cling to hope gives me hope in return. And they do the forearm gimmick. And he says, thank you, Aenid. You saved my life and reunited me with my father. It is a debt I can never repay. Thiel says, reach Nocturne and finish this and reward my faith in you and shall consider us even. And he says, I'm sorry about it, Biglio. And he says, I am my brother, but he will not be the last. And he knew the risks. We all know. So they leave, and Numeon hits him with the Vulkan lives. And Thiel says, he does. In you. Right here. So yes, they leave. And somewhere else, from a different place, a Legionnaire wakes up with no name, no memory, and immediately throws up, but he doesn't remember anything at all. He can't even recognize his own voice or his face. And he's in the dark, and he feels something in his foot, and he kicks it, and he says, who are you? In a body, wake up, and he looks at it. It's another Space Marine, but it is dead, wearing gray battle plate with no rank markers at all, just one small sigil worked into the plate, which is a stylized eye inside an iota symbol. So it's the capital I with an I in the middle of it, like the organ eye.
Yeah.
So he doesn't know who this is. But the corpse has a bolt pistol and a knife, which he takes, and he finds a small little pinprick wound at the man's neck, which is basically as if like a needle poisoned to death.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing he can remember is sleep. And he starts getting these memories kind of come back, and he hears egress, and he checks a hatch. And this hatch realizes that he's on a ship. It is a dark cargo hold, a small freighter. And he finally sees his armor, and he's wearing this red word bearer's armor. And he looks down and realizes, I'm with Narek. So I'm with Narek, ended up on this spaceship, and didn't remember how.
Is this ship the Salamander ship, or? Unknown.
We don't know.
Okay.
He's just on a ship, a small freighter ship.
Got it.
So, the Shadow Crusade is still going on, where we talked about it before. Here. So the Charybdis is moving through, and all of a sudden, Death Guard appear. Not a lot of them, but just a cruiser.
Mm-hmm.
And Zyto says, Death Guard, how many? Landers, how many of them? And Zyto says, like, should we even get involved? But Zyto says, I won't ignore my duty for the sake of prudence. It's like, you still got to help.
Mm-hmm.
So before the rescue force launches, Zyto goes looking for Numeon, and he can't reach him on the box. And Var'kir already knows where he is. He is in a storage chamber in the ship, and is kneeling beside Vulkan's casket. And Numeon says, how long have you been here? And Var'kir says, not as long as you. And Var'kir doesn't, you can figure out what's going on here. And he says, you fear you will rise again. You fear you will not be here to witness it. We don't know when Vulkan lives. And he says, not exactly. He said, what I've been trying to do actually is pull the Fulgurite out of his chest.
Mm.
His hands are all cut up, but he's like, I just can't get it.
It's stuck.
It's really stuck in there. He says, since you came with a Charybdis, how many? He says, every day, but it never yields. He says, it won't ever, not to strength, brother. I think the Primarchs started taking out too, just didn't come out. So Var'kir tells him straight. He says, the dead do not come back, Archellus. Do not cling to this poisonous obsession. It will destroy you. And Numeon shows us these all cut up hands. He says, help me, Var'kir, please. And he says, believe. And they believe that Vulkan lives.
I said, believe in what?
Finish the statement. Punctualize your sentence. And they're going to call over that, Death Guard are here. We're going to fight them. So they fight them, and it's a whole thing. And the Death Guard are being kind of weird. And there's one of them called Ushaman. Okay, so this is not Death Guard. This is a salamander named Ushaman, who's which I think is a pistillery. Like a record keeper or something? I don't know. Anyways, but he is getting kind of this weird things. He says, there is fear, many lives. Our cousins react with aggression, reckless hate, something toxic. He says, save us, Thorniverse, please, help us, Angel of the Emperor, help. It has them. A taint, it claws at my skull. Unearths Kabar, I cannot. And Gargo knocks him out before he can get real possessed by something. Because he's a librarian. So I guess pistillery, I don't know what means in librarian terms, but yes.
Okay.
So Gargo says, he said, Angel of the Emperor, while channeling a soul from the rampart. It means we could have an ally down there. And Numeon says, Ushaman, borrowed words mean nothing. Assume nothing, brothers. Our enemies are below and will try to deceive us if they can. So they drop down there, and they find a massacre at this shipyard or dockyard, not shipyard, but like a dock.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about over 60 civilians are just done in, totally dead. And they were killed by, there is this dark mold that builds across their rebreather. And Gargo says it's because it was the taint Ushaman mentioned. And Vulkan never allowed terror weapons. Radiation bombs, phosphax, virus bombs, stuff that the Dreadwing uses, right?
Right.
So, and he's wondering, I wonder if it's one of those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes to find the Death Guard and finds that 6 crew are already dead on the Death Guard thing. And then Zayden says, did I miss the war, Zytos? What is going on here? So, and they push deeper in the complex and find 87 more dead in a refectory, poisoned, even when they have rebreathers on. So it's just there's something weird happening here. So, and all of a sudden, 6 live Death Guard appear with black Quor blades. And Quor is a heavy curved blade cleaving weapon. It is a big sword, basically, big curved sword.
Yeah.
They also have their Vulkite weapons, and they're using the variant, which is like I said before, that ray gun that just is a laser, but the laser also heats you up. It's like a microwave laser. So if you shoot something long enough, the basically combust and blow up into chunks. Okay. It's a microwave gun in a way.
Mm-hmm.
They were very common back in the day, but during the Great Crusade, but they're very expensive and hard to make, so most people don't have them anymore.
Okay.
Bolters just kind of replace them because they're easier to mass produce. Mm-hmm. So some people sell Vulkite, but it's not very common.
Got it.
So Numeon says, be ready for anything. Those are barbers, do not go down easily. So they start fighting them, and Vorko gets hit with a Vulkite thing that almost takes his leg off, right? So it's, real, Vulkite is real nasty. Mm-hmm. And Numeon starts moving there too, and he hits him with the Vulkan lives. And it's just declaration, right? He's just, every time something happens, like, Vulkan lives, you guys know that? Hey, just want to let you guys know Vulkan lives. That's all.
That is all. Thank you.
Okay. You said it every time now. So Death Guard tries to grab this bomb and throw it out, and is kind of this sickly, toxic cloud spreads out, and one of the Death Guard get caught in the blast instead, and his face melts under this gas. So it's almost like a virus grenade bomb thing. And Numeon is caught in this cloud. His armor is sealing away, and it starts melt away at his armor. And Var'kir turns his flamer directly on the tunnel that the Death Guard are in, and on Numeon himself. And Zyto says, Numeon was born of fire. We all were. He will survive this. Basically, he sends this incinerating flame down. Inside the flames, Numeon drops to his knees and is holding the sigil in both hands. And you know what he's going to say.
I already know what he's going to say.
He just said, Vulkan lives. And Zytos calls up the flamer and goes in after him. And Numeon's armor is fused at the joints and the paint is burned clean off. He's alive, but he's kind of stuck in the armor because it's like melted around him.
Yeah.
And checks to make sure he didn't get hit by this poison grenades. And Numeon says, I am untouched, I believe. But before he can recover, the Death Guard with the Culvarian, the Volkite, has one arm and rises out of the smoke and grabs Numeon by the throat. And Numeon stabs the gladiator through his head and then passes out. Numeon says, Death Guard don't go down easily. They sure don't.
Mm-hmm.
So there's more of this fighting that they have. And the Salamanders are kind of making their way through them. It just takes a while because, a Death Guard they just don't die. And all of a sudden they find there's some civilians here that were, hiding, mostly women and children. And one of them is called Caspian Hecht. And Zyto sees a mark, an eye engraved into the symbol on the gray plate. He's like, that's Sigillites, the Malkador symbol. And Numeon says, we will have questions, Brother Hecht, not least of which concerning why you're here and how you came to have the mark of the Sigillite on your armor. Very interesting.
Yeah.
And Caspian says, well, what if I refuse? Numeon says, I have a feeling you won't. Maybe don't refuse, actually. Do I have a picture of Caspian Hecht? I don't think so. No, it doesn't matter. So,
and that was the armor he took off the other guy, right? That was in the...
No, this is Caspian Hecht. This is not...
Oh, this is not the other guy.
Yeah, Narek, the guy that was in the cell with Narek, or that weird room.
He had it.
He also had, he had that armor too. So this was another one of Malkador's guys.
Okay.
That ended up dying somehow.
Yeah.
So Death Guard is still fighting back, and their gunship is shredding through the Salamanders transport, and Ushman steps out of Draconis' own hold, barely conscious, and he's getting his lightning ready, his Psycho Lightning, and he shoots the gunship and blows it up basically in the air, cooking his ammunition. And all the Death Guard died in that explosion. And Ushman says, a moment, I was compelled to rouse. In my stupor, I beheld a vision of our father, a Vulkan. He told me I had to rise. And Numeon says, you know what that means? It's my time. Vulkan lives. Because he runs past everyone. What was that? Does it Vulkan lives? So Var'kir leaves the questioning with Caspian Hecht. And eventually Var'kir says, are you alone? And Hecht says, he wasn't originally. She says, there's another agent that had ordered to meet. And a passenger freighter picked him up and dropped him off at a refueling depot by chance. He said, I do not believe in luck. I believe in the Emperor's judgment. He deemed my survival just. And he says, I'm a sworn servant of Malkador the Sigillite. See his mark upon my armor. And Var'kir has a real question for him. He says, I have not set eyes on Terra for a long time, nor have I had any contact with Lord Malkador beyond my original orders. But my mission is mine alone to know. Even your volatile psyche could not wrench it from my mind. And any tortures you might devise would yield nothing also. Basically, Malkador got special guys, and he puts these mind protections around them. You're not getting past Malkador's protections.
Mm-hmm.
So he says, and it said, I'll offer you trade. Give me passage until I can find another ship, and no questions asked about, wherever you guys are going. And Numeon steps in and says, where we're heading, that might not be possible. Into the Ruinstorm. Bum bum. And in the Apothecarion, Gargo checks Ushman's vitals, and nothing is wrong with them. And Ushman says, ignorance is oft preferable to truth. And Ushman brings up Hecht's claims about serving Malkador. And if Hecht is telling the truth, it only proves Terra stood the last time he was there, and not that it stands now. Says, then why was Guilliman raising a second Imperium with Macragge as epicenter? By confronting this war, we face unpleasant truth. It is the same for Vulkan also. And Gargo doesn't want to hear, right? And Ushman tells him anyways. Basically, I saw a vision. I beheld a Primarch, but do you know who I felt when I searched Vulkan's mind, Gargo? Emptiness. A tomb. He says, I saw fire, endless, life-eclipsing fire, immulus. So, basically, Vulkan's epitaph, the unbound flame, is basically picked up on. And Gargo can't argue it, right? He's like, but he's dead. But Gargo says, Vulkan lives.
Are we... So, I don't know if this gets explained, but the guys with the Malkador's symbol on them, is that the Knights Errant that we talked about earlier?
Kind of similar, yeah. They're similar in a way of kind of Malkador has his own special guys that he sends out to do missions for him.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they're kind of like, I don't know if they're specifically Knights Errant, but they are Malkador's own guys.
Yeah.
that he picks to do special macro missions.
Okay.
So similar kind of like we talked about Gabriel Loken and all that.
Mm.
But Gabriel Loken doesn't wear that type of armor. He wears, I think he still wears Lunar Wolf armor.
Okay.
So, all right. And so nearly 50 of the civilians are crammed in the Charybdis' hold. They're like, I mean, we don't got much room. It's as good as we're going to get. So there is this guy there named Odyssean, who is, I think, the captain of the ship. And he sees this girl and he says, Melissa, he recognizes her. Odyssean, this guy Odyssean had a daughter and she died young and he prayed for her anyways, clutching a prescribed book that he still keeps hidden at risk to reveal that the claims that Emperor Chair is a god rather than a man. So this is not a religious book, but Emperor religious book.
Mm-hmm. And
the prayers went unanswered and he put the book away and said, I forget it until now. He says, not her, not Melissa. And by the time he reaches the bridge to go figure that out, Circe, the navigators, decided that Charybdis will breach the Ruinstorm without the Astronomicon or the Ferris to guide it. In short, basically short jumps that we can take the risk on. But she said, I might die in the progress. She says, it will be arduous, shipmaster, but I am strong enough to bear it. And Odysseus doesn't hide what he thinks. He says, it's going to be bad. And basically, this guy said, Galero says, this will likely kill her. Odysseus says, she knows. We all know. Like, it is what it is. Like, how are we going to get through this?
Mm-hmm.
So Hecht stays locked in interrogation cell under Var'kir's watch. Marcus says light or not, they don't trust him. I mean, Alpha could just fake that symbol,
Right.
And Xenut is on his way out when this guy Zahn tells him, we got a bunch of data all of a sudden as we're moving through here. It was originally a Death Guard ship that attacked. And he says, yes, it was a scrap code of data that would suggest that it was received. So this Death Guard had gotten information right before they attacked. But then a second transmission went at the same starship, second set of the first one. And he says, Zeta says, they sent our whereabouts to another ship. Basically, those Death Guard did their mission, knew they were being followed, and were like, hey, heads up, and they're about to get tracked. So basically, whoever's hunting the Fulgurite knows exactly where to look.
Right.
So, and the Charybdis isn't hard to find either. I mean, it's probably one of the biggest ships that left Macragge at the time.
Yeah.
And Quor Gallek is like, in Greek and myth, there was a denizen of the deep so massive as Maw drank in the sea, a swirling vortex that dragged ships to their doom. Poetic, isn't it? Because it's Charybdis, right?
Mm-hmm.
His name of the ship. And standing over him is the Gat, who is a word bearer with so many tattoos that it's basically, his skin is now black in tattoos. And he's similar to Bethusa Narek. But the Gat doesn't care about poetry. He says he wants to know if the ship will bring him to Vulkan. And Quor Gallek says it will lead us to the Fulgurite, which in turn will give us to Narek and more besides. And Daget asks, how could anyone have talked Salamanders into living a fortress? And Quor Gallek says, grief. I did not lie to Numeon when I said I knew his thoughts. I knew everything. His desperation had been predictable. And I knew the threat of Xenut Sul would provide the gentle push he needed. So basically, this has all been orchestrated.
Mm-hmm.
Quor Gallek says, all three for the taking. And Daget says, Narek dies first. Do what you want with the rest. Basically, I want to get that guy. That guy, I want to get him. Similar to the thing what happened with, was it Cario and Eidolon, right? As long as you get to kill Shaban, you can do whatever you want.
Right.
So, the chamber that Quor Gallek in is called the altar. There are many of these. And they're kind of almost religious sites that they took off Monarchia and they installed them into the ships.
Okay.
So, and there are 8 of them, because for 8 prisoners and the 8 paths for chaos, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the 8 is number for chaos, which is also Quor's number, so which is interesting. It's like, seems it.
Right. Yeah, I know when we were talking about the Path of Heaven stuff, I think they're like, oh gosh, it was Arvita went to like the platform. It's like, it was octagonal. It's like,
right. Octagonal, 8 paths and the 8 seers and the thing. Also, should double checked on that with the Raven thing, that Raven image you saw, that was, yes, Harmon.
Okay.
I had double check. I'm pretty sure it was. I just want to double check.
Yeah.
So, anyways, yes. So, Quor Gallek says 8 times 8, 8, which, so he does this ritual, and the Word Bearer rituals are real brutal stuff. It's not just like, oh, I draw some blood and I do a little circle. It's like, I'm going to basically turn these people inside out,
Mm-hmm.
with these chains and all that.
Yeah.
So the first one he offers is an Iron Hands Legionary. He had captured one, which you hate to see it. There's not many of those guys left.
Yeah.
And Quor Gallek gets him, and he said, and the Iron Hand says, "You won't break me." And Quor Gallek says, "I know. I've always respected the courage of Iron Hands." And he assumes, you're some demon or something using me, whatever. And Quor Gallek takes out a knife and says, "It's just a knife, the one you should be really familiar with. And the blade is laced with anticoagulants. Basically, if you stab with this knife, even Space Marines Lehrman cells will not stop the bleeding." So he starts cutting through the guy's meat, and it says bleeding really nastily. And Quor Gallek says, "The sword comes with your blood, my erstwhile brother. Lorgar thanks you for your sacrifice." And he moves the second prisoner, and tells Dagat exactly what this is for. It says, they won't survive the Ruinstorm. I'm scripting a coda to the Primarch Symphony. It echoes will ripple across endless night, and when it has them, when they falter, and will fall upon the drakes and finish what we've begun at Isfahan. Basically, he's creating a beacon in a way of like, by killing these people, I can make a transponder that will latch onto Vulkan's body. That then when they're in the warp and they're messing up, it'll flash and then we can jump to them.
Okay.
Yeah, it's weird, but hey, it's whatever they want.
Yes, they're tracking Vulkan's ship or his body or whatever.
His like essence, his warp essence.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and whenever they get through, basically it's like a ping out.
Mhm.
And once they're in the warp, they can ping off.
Yeah.
So Xylos goes to find Numeon in the sanctum with blood still on his hands, trying to get that thing out. And he says, I got news that that this Death Guard ship got a signal out before it died. He says, they'll come for us out of petty revenge, if nothing else. And then Xylos says something else. He says, you are a leader now. If we make it back to Nocturne, Numeon says, we have a purpose. Vulkan is our purpose. He will rise again just as he has risen before. I am not Legion Master, not whilst we have a Primarch. And Xylos asks something. He says, when Numeon lost hope in anything else, when I looked upon his cold corpse, like, how did you not lose hope? And Xylos says, our father may be dead, but we are brothers still. Are we not enough? And Numeon says, he's our Primarch, Barrack Xylos. And Xylos walks away, and Numeon kneels back at the casket and wipes his blood off. And Numeon says, give me some small signs. Show me there is life yet in the Lord of Drakes. Vulkan lives. I swear it. Please. I can't be wrong.
So does he know that Vulkan's a perpetual?
Nobody knows.
Okay.
It's the only person who knows is Curse.
Yeah, and that's what I thought.
I guess also so does Guilliman, Synchronous, and the Lion now too. But
yeah.
But he got stabbed with Fulgurite and he can't get it out. And it's like, well, it seems I'm coming back from this. So
yeah.
But no, it's a big secret.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like everything Numeon, like his obsession with Vulkan, it would make a whole lot more sense if he knew Vulkan was a perpetual.
Well, I guess he does know, right? Because he says he's risen before.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, he says,
and maybe he knows about the time on.
Yeah, he is just as he has risen before.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess he does know that, like, yeah, Vulkan can come back. He just doesn't know why he's not coming back now.
Yeah.
I guess that's the whole thing. Is like, Vulkan lives. I guess he's done it before. He's done it before. What's going on here?
Which makes I'll give him like some benefit. It makes a little bit more sense.
It's like Iron Hands, where they don't say like Ferris lives because like no, he's really dead.
Yeah.
So Gargo is working his armor, and Zathan is watching, smoking some pipe. They be hitting that pipe. Everybody's gonna relax. And Zathan doesn't believe he's coming back. He makes no secret of it. He says, alive, dead, I just want to kill traitors, brother. I breathe vengeance. My sustenance is retribution. I just want them to burn. He's like, man, I'm ready to go. Let me go. And he shows Gargo a blade that Gargo had forged before Isfahan. And he notices that this old blade versus the new armor you're working on. He says, don't tell me you don't want blood for that, for everything you've lost. And Gargo doesn't deny it. He's like, fair enough. So he puts the pieces back in the fire to start over. He's like, I'm gonna make some real good armor here. So back in with Circe, she kneels alone and removes the thing covering her third eye, and she opens her sight and she says, there is no light, like there's no guidance here, like she's on her own. And Ushaman's voice reaches into her mind and kind of to help her hold, but it isn't enough. The storm overwhelms her completely, and she basically is like blasted with all this information. And the Charybdis falls into warp with her, and the ship drops back into real space a little violently, and everybody gets knocked off their feet somehow.
Mm-hmm.
You're in space, I think, how's her gravity, and whatever. And the power system started failing, and it's like a big tidal wave of just basically turn off everything. Emergency systems turn on, and all of a sudden in the interrogation chamber, Caspian Hecht is seized by something violent and unexplained. Psychic wave that drops him, and when he catches his own reflection in the pause surface, he doesn't even recognize the face. And then it passes. And then the cell door opens on its own in the sanctum. And in the sanctum that Numeon is in, he feels the ship kind of do that thing. The power turns out. He says, how easy has it become to forget your lessons, Father, when you are no longer here to remind us. And Zahn confirms, like, this is the worst timing. Straight up powerless, and the Death Guard cruiser behind us. So Xylos finds Hecht cell empty, but he's also just waiting in the corridor instead. And Xylos says, why didn't you run? And Cassie says, to where would I run? And to what end? I am where I need to be. I was like, where am I going to go?
Right.
I mean, I'm on a big ship, to be fair, but it's like, I can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So Hecht says, I'll fight with you. When the Death Guard show up, I want to kill them. And Dino says, yeah, but betray us, I'll kill you myself. And he says, hey, fair enough, buddy. Relax. So Numeon feels the breach before he gets the call, and the Death Guard are aboard. They aborted. And he ambushes a 5-man reconnaissance squad, kills them easily, and he's working through them. And they realize they were deliberately cutting off his retreat as a teleportation flares to life in the storage bay ahead of him. And Adelaide says something worse than the 5-man squad is a cataphract Terminator, which I have a picture of here what that kind of looks like. So these are bigger Terminators.
Okay.
It's like a step below Dreadnought, basically.
Mhm.
So most Terminators are bad news, but a cataphractic Terminator is like, it's like a walking tank. I mean, most Dreadnoughts are, but this is like a bigger tank.
Right. It has a Space Marine that like is not dead.
No, yes, you can get out of this, but it's basically, they call it the tactical Dreadnought armor because it's like, Dreadnought, but not for people who are corpses.
And there's a Death Guard one.
Yes,
right?
No, that's a picture of Ultramarines one, but yes, this is a Death Guard one. It steps out, and he's like, and it has lightning claws. And he's like, I don't know if I can fight that. Sent there specifically to confirm that Vulkan is dead. I'm gonna make sure of it. And Numeon has no weapons, and he looks at the sigil and he says, it's also a hammer. And he gets that vision in his head from Vulkan said with Curse, where he's like, wait, how did I remember that? What? And then also bolter fire catches the Terminator mid-charge and knocks him back. And Numeon gets his hammer and the swing lands square in the chest plate, and it caves the whole thing in, crushes his mesh bone armor into a single ruin mass, and it kills him in one hit. So actually wasn't a big threat after all.
I'm just like the whole time they were talking about this like a pendant or whatever, the sigil.
Mm-hmm.
I'm imagining like a super small hammer, like a necklace hammer.
Yeah, I mean,
and
I feel like it is too. It's like it can't be just a big hammer.
Yeah, no, because he's like
a thunder hammer.
Yeah,
I guess maybe it is like a normal like hammer,
maybe like a handheld kind of.
Yeah, maybe like a tool hammer.
Yeah.
So I guess but I guess it was empowered by something because the way it smashed into it was like destroyed his chest. And the hammer has no blood on it. It's like
okay.
I guess it is also a hammer, but like weird.
Yeah.
So Zydos finds the captain sitting over the body, and he says, "Vulkan lives." And for the first time, Numeon feels his brother Belief become the mirror of his own, because Caspian Hecht steps out of the shadows and kills 2 more Death Guard and hands Zydos back his pistol. And Zydos says, "How, brother? How? Like, how did you just to take down a Terminator with that little tool hammer?"
Yeah.
And Numeon says, "Vulkan. He lives. He blessed my hammer." So, which you really get a lot of that, right? This like weird superpower, like we were talking about with Euphrates Keeler back then. She could stop time with the power of the Emperor. It's like sometimes like weird things happen where he's like the power of belief.
Yeah. Those moments where like power of friendship and believing I did it.
By the power of Vulkan, I killed this guy. It's like sure.
Yeah.
So the ship that they were followed by, they light it up and they blow it up and it destroys. And Odysseus says, "We're the killer of worlds. We're the sailors of the untamed sea." So they survive. All 66 surviving Salamanders gather in the Ignium, and they kind of have a little get together, but they're like, that was only the beginning, though. That was a scout ship. There's a full fleet is coming, and we got to keep running. Yeah, if 2 of those guys show up, we might have a problem. They're those Terminators. So Ushman says, "A single ship buoyed by hope. It is the smallest pinprick of light that can pierce the darkness where a shaft would not. Our own path. I took the notion for his very thoughts, brother." So they don't really know what that means, though. And Zathan doesn't trust Hecht at all. Mark of the sigil or not. And Ushman says, "Mine's been shielded. The bear's impenetrable to me. I know a few psychics who can unlock them." And Numeon says, "Hecht is like us, whether we like it or not." So Gargo is like, "Are you our captain now? Or like, do you want to take over?" And Numeon says, "Until the Lord Jace returns, I am your master." And then they say, "All hail Numeon. Vulkan lives." That's a 66 count there.
So are these all the Salamanders?
This is all that's left.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I should say all. There may be some other around, but this is
like the main.
This is really well you got. I mean, yeah. I mean, might be a lot left, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. I mean, as far as we know, right? There might be some like in different pockets.
Yeah.
But there's probably still some on Nocturne as well.
Mm-hmm.
So another Death Guard ship shows up. This Vengeance class ship, and I have a picture of a Vengeance class cruiser. It's hard to see in the picture, but these things are massive.
Mm-hmm.
They are. Like the Charybdis is probably the size of like this part of it. His middle part here, maybe a little smaller.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that thing shows up, and it is led by Lestagon, who is a Death Guard who has survived everything. I mean, he has been hit with Volkite in the face. He got a wasting disease as a child. Like, his larynx was burned raw by fire. He is a survivor. And he says, I shall be the first legionary to kill a Primarch. And so, because Fulgrim already killed a Primarch, but he's like, but he was a Primarch, he's different. I'm a Space Marine, so it's different.
Yeah. Is he thinking he's going to kill Vulkan, even though, assumedly, Vulkan's dead?
He doesn't care if he's alive or dead. He just wants to take his head, basically.
Okay.
So if he's dead, he takes his head and he has his trophy. He's like, I really made sure he was dead.
Okay.
Also, no, most people don't even know Vulcan's dead. That was a secret that wasn't supposed to really leave.
Yeah.
So that's the thing too. So Quor Gallek calls in, and Lestigon says, you told me the turmoil you stirred up would scupper their ship and said it broke into my reach. But here we are, presiding over a wreck of one of my own vessels instead. And Quor Gallek says, look, I underestimated them, but I have a new plan. Let them go deeper into the storm, deep enough that the demons already bound to my will can finish what we started. But Lestigon doesn't trust him. I mean, because remember, Death Guard do not like Psychers and magics and all that. They find that stuff distasteful.
Yeah.
Quor Gallek, he says, you should kill him yourself. And Quor Gallek says, I have no use for a corpse, cousin. I merely want the shaft of the stone that will be jutting from his cold body. And they make a deal, even though they both intend to break it by the time the call is over. And then when they do, Dagat says he will try to betray us. And Quor says, almost certainly, which is why, when you have killed Narek, you will end the life of Malak Lestigon also. So Quor Gallek takes out his blade. It's a small blade, barely longer than a finger, and its edge is so fine it's nearly invisible. And this was not carved in ordinary metal. He carved it from one of Ferrus Manus' own severed fingers, which was taken from Ferrus Manus' body after Fulgrim took his head off. So he has this basically Ferrus Manus scalpel. And Quor Gallek says, we will do as Lestigon asks, but we will take what is ours also and cut the Fulgrim from Vulcan's own flesh. Then when the Death Guard are closing in for their kill, I will trap them in the storm and lead them to rot. Basically, his idea is with this finger bone scalpel, because the Primarch, only Primarchs can hurt the Primarchs is the idea. So I can cut his skin open and take the spear out.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's his idea. And, Circe goes jumping the storm a second time, and Odysseus is going to kill her. And Hecht says, a narrow sliver of light can penetrate what a shaft cannot, eking through the minute imperfections in the cloth, shining on what lies ahead, eventually beyond the veil. And he says, the storm is going to drag up and magnify whatever emotional weight you guys are carrying. His only hope will guide us through the storm and a willingness to embrace our fate. So it's going to be a bad time through this warp tunnel.
Right. I thought they were out of the warp, or am I just...
They got through part of the Ruinstorm, and they had to get out of it because it was too much, and then they're going to go back into it to keep going.
Okay.
So it's basically have to keep doing these small jumps.
Yeah. Okay.
So Odyssean makes a broadcast. It says, may he watch over you as you wander in dark places. He as in the Emperor. And they jump back in. And Circe's doing it and says, he comes, the one-eyed king. I feel him opening my mind like a box without a key, sifting through my thoughts. Which is interesting. The one-eyed king is Magnus, right? The one eye. So very peculiar. And she screams so loud it actually destroys some of the voice systems. It's like, oh. And Ushma is trying to anchor her enough to keep the ship on course. And Odyssean is so wrung out, he hands the bridge to Galero and says, I gotta take over for me. This is too much. And so they're trying to do it. And Numeon finds Zydos, and he offers his hand. He says, I have wronged you, Zydos, and my brothers aboard this ship. I let my own selfish desires almost overwhelm us, and I raise my hand against you in anger when I should have operated in brotherhood. And they do the forearm thing again. And Numeon offers his own sword back into Zydos' service, and Zydos accepts it. Of course. I've been asking you the whole time to do this. So Zathan is also doing his patrols as well, making sure there's no Death Guard hiding aboard. And he's still really mad about Isfahan 5. And he was there in Urgal Depression when the bombs dropped down, his own company watching his brother get cut apart by Death Guard. So he really is Death Guard. And watching the Strawman Blade almost take his eye, right? A Night Lord almost killed him. And he was floated off the field half dead and really never left him since. And one of his own guys rhythms fast movement in the head in the dark, and Zathan catches a glimpse of a dirty white carapace, mottled green. He says, the Death Guard are here, slay them. Basically, there were Death Guard hiding aboard. And he uses flames into the tunnel before anyone can stop him. And what he realizes when he's burning before is Kurek, one of his own men. But they're too late. Kurek's Prometheum tanks cook off in the heat and the blast explodes, killing him and Zadar outright. It is a huge explosion. And second time in his life, Zathan actually burned his own men. And the memory of his front closed all over again. This PTSD is kicking in hard. So when it was, they said, hey, the warp's going to magnify your feelings. So just be careful with that. Zathan is like, oops, I'm going to get real mad. So Odyssean finally corners this girl that he's chasing. They thought was his daughter. And she's standing there perfectly still, like she's been waiting for him. And he's like, wait a minute, you're not. And this voice is coming out of this strange child. He's like, what are you? And on the bridge, Galero spots what looks like the same small girl hiding under an auger station. And he says, what are you doing down there? You don't belong here. And the voice says back to him as well, you don't belong here. And he's like, wait a minute, that's not a child's voice. And all of a sudden, this guy, Sensi, is violently sick. And Gellar reaches for his arm, but it's not fast enough as his demon or this warp manifestation attacks him. And Var'kir opens his eyes from another failed vigil at the flame to find a warrior in gray iron looming over him, sword drawn. And Var'kir says, only cowards and assassins strike from the shadows. I was born on fire, you fool. You can't kill me like that. He says, not trying to look. And Hecht was parrying a killing blow meant for Var'kir, driven there by the same small girl. They're retreating in the shadows. So they're getting attacked by this small demon child. And you can see that there are two handprints scorched through his own shoulder guards, far too large and far too wide to ever to have belonged to a child. And Casket says, not a child, not even close. She would have burned you alive in that flame. And Hecht names what they're dealing with. He says, these are not unburdened, chaplain. They are Diabolos. They are never-born demons. Full shells will barely scratch them. We are in their realm now. So it's like this. You thought the unburdened were bad?
Oh, right.
Cool. No Primarch here. Well, there is, but no, with Jagged Icon to fight that Keeper Secrets.
Yeah. This isn't like a greater demon.
No, this is just demons.
Yeah. Okay.
Just messing with them because they're in the Ruinstorm.
Mm-hmm.
So a bunch of warning lights flash. And the Vox system is dead, so they can't talk to each other. And Numeon leaves Zydos, Dakar, and Abademi to investigate. And they find behind the glass was a slaughterhouse. They see a crew hung by the scene by their own intestines, blood clogging the atmosphere recyclers, and a girl hiding in the console with her hands soaked red to the wrist. And she says, Vulkan is dead. No one believes you. You can't come back. No one comes back. And she's always in the shadow before either of them can hit her. And the only survivor is Lieutenant Esenzi, who we just talked about earlier, who's curled in the alcove. And Numeon goes to check on her. She's clutching a hidden Aquila with Vulkan's own hammer symbol etched on the back. And she says, I prayed. And Numeon doesn't. He's like, what are you praying for? We're not supposed to do that. He says, hey, fair enough. I kind of do it too. Vulkan lives, right? Same here, brother. Hey, dude. Awesome. And Zahn confirms, he's like, we just fought the same thing. He's like, there's more than one. And Numeon says, there is more than one. And a plague has come aboard this vessel. So she sends his energy to go shut with Ushaman. And he says, we need to find Odyssean before whatever's hunting and finishes the job. Because this is the captain. You don't get a captain and have a bad time. Mm-hmm. So Var'kir lends 20 salamanders to the lower decks against a very different threat. Word bearers are now here too somehow. They warp jumped. They go, huh? How'd you get up here? And one of them is the preacher himself, Quor Gallek. And he is here in the flesh, not in no hologram. And two chaplains, the lock eyes, they go, oh, Spider-Man meme. And Hecht reads this objective. He says, they're not here to fight. They're headed for the Genitorium. Basically, to bring down the Gellar field and let every demon get aboard. So, like we talked about before, that Gellar field, it can protect you, but things can still seep in. It's not, perfect. But once that thing goes down, it's over.
Right. So, those kind of like demon children that are in there, do you think they would also attack
word bearers? Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
They don't care. I mean, they just want to eat everything. I mean, word bearers have probably more defenses against them because they've been studying them, but no, they
don't care.
They really don't care. Yeah. At the end of the day, it's all about just consuming. So, Caspian Hecht says if that field goes, we all go. Like that's it. And Hecht volunteers to go through alone the Magnus ducts, basically sneak around and get back to Zahn and Gargo. He says we need to get to them, make sure they get stopped. And Quor Gallek is pushing deeper into the ship with the Gat and a dozen word bearers. And he actually is stringing out the psychic cost of having these demons that he's actually summoned these demons with the war power. So it is kind of killing them, but it's keeping them distracted. And Numeon and Zydo see something. They see Vulkan walking the halls alone, slow and wordless, and no Fulgurite. They go, and Numeon goes, Father, Vulkan lives. And they chase him through it, and they're like, wait a minute. And they see Vulkan waiting for a junction. And he's like, come here. And then all of a sudden, Conrad Curse steps up in the dark behind him. And Zydo's like, no, look out. It's Curse. And the sigil that Numeon has built burns hot enough to actually burn him. And all of a sudden, the lie tears open all at once. There's no Vulkan, no Curse, and there's a torn gap between the decks. Basically, huge chunk of the ship is just missing. Okay. And Zydos is running straight for it. And Numeon says, basically shoots at him, says, stop. You're going to jump up, idiot. It's like, you ever play, was it Until Dawn, but not Until Dawn, but the other ones they made?
Yeah.
The one that was you're on like that ship?
Yes.
It's basically that's what's happening here.
Okay.
They're going through the whole thing, and the guys about to jump and fall and then die. And Zydo stops right short of the drop, and Vulkan is standing there, and the girl is now there instead. And Zydo says, how can we trust our eyes now? And Numeon says, trust your instincts, Zydo, and trust Vulkan. Because he lives. Odyssean is running blind, basically, went against all these demons. And only Ushima's presence is keeping the thing wearing this demon girl's shape, this demon girl from killing him completely.
Mhm.
And he can feel his soul being drawn thin with every step. And Ushima says, hold to your purpose. There is no surrender for you or I, shipmaster. A soul is not consumed, then at peace. It will burn forever in eternal torment. Yeah. Like we talked before, Psychers, when they get stuck in the warp, they just get chewed at forever. It is not pleasant.
Yeah.
And Ushima is fading too. And he says, I have wards, but I need to get to the librarium. And the demons basically start taunting him. And all of a sudden, Ushima goes down unconscious. And Odyssean is left alone with this demon getting close to him. So Zon and Gargo are holding off these 15 word bearers. They're trying to destroy the Gellar field. And it comes a hand-to-hand fight. And a brute of word bearer rips off Gargo's arm at the shoulder. And he's now down to one bionic arm. He's like, come on. But he's fighting anyways. And Zon is holding the line himself after that, chain sword against blade and mace until a strike opens his neck. And a second one finishes his first start. He gets one more down. He says, Vulkan.
You can't finish this.
Can't say lives. They got me. He says, stop saying that. Kills him. And Dagat kicks somebody aside and, get the reaching charge ready to blow up this generator. And the charge never gets planted, though. A bolter round takes the breacher's head out before he can even hand it over. And Zathan's power class have finally arrived, driving Dagat's remaining warriors back to the genitorium. Gargo's bleeding out, one arm left, and crawls further enough to see the fight turn before the darkness takes him. The last thing he sees actually that the Quor Gallek wasn't with those guys. He went somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So Odyssean, back to Odyssean, and he starts reciting this prayer. In the Emperor's shadow I shall not falter, for it is he that banished the denizens of old night with the light of the imperial truth. And all of a sudden he hears a bolter fire above him. And Numeon's team has arrived in time. How convenient. And the demon dissolves away. And Numeon says, save your ammo. Hammers and blades are the only ways to be sure. And Odyssean and Asensi find each other. And Asensi says, Lieutenant Gellar is dead, sir. They're all dead. The entire bridge crew. I'm the only one who survived. So Var'kir reaches Numeon over finding the comms that are working, confirming that Wordbear's real target. And the Hecht's already moved to reinforce the genitorium alone. And Numeon says, Vulkan lives, chaplain. And Var'kir says, and you, brother captain. How much else I got to tell you that? So Quor Gallek is nearly at the sanctum when a lone gray armored legionary steps in his back. He says, Caspian Hecht, I serve Lord Malkador. And they circle each other. They're fighting. A blade against blade. And Quor Gallek is basically takes out his own weapon, which is this 3-pronged trident. And Quor Gallek's eyes narrow. Something about the way the stranger moves is like, bothers. Why does it look so familiar? Gallek says, I hadn't expected to find another word bearer aboard this ship. And Hecht says, what? And then Quor Gallek drives the trident through his chest before he can recover, twists it and rips it free, and takes off his helmet to look at the face underneath. He says, whatever they did to you, it went deep, but didn't quite take. You look very different, brother. But it is you. I do not forget one of my own. So Caspian Hecht is not Caspian Hecht at all. It's Methuselah Narek.
Yeah.
So that was the whole, he was aboard the Charybdis the whole time. What a twist. And Quor Gallek says, a pity Elias got to you before I could. So remember we talked about, I think a couple episodes, that other word bearer, Elias. He did that kind of psychic thing we talked about the Alpha Legion. I redid your memories.
Oh, yeah.
So, and he starts, Quor Gallek keeps talking, and Methuselah says, stop talking, just finish it. He has was it Mike from Breaking Bad?
Oh,
just shut up and kill me already. But Quor Gallek says, I want one more thing before I kill you. He says, I want to know what the Fulgurite actually showed you. And he says, it did nothing but open my eyes to the truth. And Quor Gallek says, oh my God. He knocks him out instead of killing him. And because he still owes Dagat that kill, if there's an error. So whatever. So his actual prize is close enough now, and he says, I have no time to spend with this. So then finds Zon's severed head first, and then Gargo crawling out one-armed, and now Zathan is because now he's really mad.
Yeah.
And he is moving through them, and Zathan is cutting out everything that moves out in front of him. And Dagat finds with the tunnel, and Zathan says, my brother tells me you're next. Are you the one who took his arm? And Dagat says, I shall return for the other, and I will anoint my banner. And Dagat fights like nothing Zathan's ever faced before. Blow after blow, no sign of tiring. Cracking his blade, basically breaking down his guard entirely, kicking him into this tunnel. And Zathan's sword snaps off into Dagat's own neck joint, leaving him with nothing to defend himself, as he comes up with this chain of blade that goes to kill him. But his hand finds something else to the ground instead, Zon's plasma torch. He fires blind and catches Dagat through the leg, searing him enough badly that it forces a scream out of him. And Zathan says, I've told you already, enough talk. And he fires again. He kills Dagat. And the Charybdis is struggling here. So the storm run is crushing down on it. And Numeon basically has to decide between reinforcing the genitorium or going straight to Vulkan. And Ushaman is basically, at this point, he's got nothing left. His wards are failing, and he says if the Gellar field falls, it will take the Sirens seconds to infiltrate our hull. It might as well be air for all protection it will offer us. And Numeon talks about the old Imperial truth about losing this particular argument. And Ushaman says, it is one, Numeon. The fight was over the moment Horus turned. Basically, he's had the same realization that the Emperor had.
Yeah.
And as soon as he puts the kill in the Numeon's hand, it says, to ward against evil. And Numeon says, I shall return it. I'm going, he's a little hammer. He doesn't need your little thing. So he leads out, and the demon says, my sisters want to play. Weird little demon girl.
Yeah.
And one becomes three. And then Vorko gets... And this demon's very dangerous, though. Just because it looks like a little girl doesn't mean it's not dangerous.
Right.
So Vorko gets ticked across the abdomen, and it's so funny, he doesn't even feel it happen. He looks at it, starts bleeding. He's like, what the heck? And Numeon grabs Vorko's own flamer and burns the quarter wide open, catching one sister mid-shriek and just melts her up. This demon's gone. And when the flames don't kill her, but it stuns her enough that they can go up with the swords and start stabbing her to death. Because they can't, like I said, guns and bullets and whatever don't work. It's hit with the swords, which I don't know why swords or kill demons with guns don't.
Yeah.
Whatever. And Vorko keeps fighting even though his guts are spilling out. He's like, yeah, just whatever. I can handle it. It's fine. I can get new guts. And he shoots the sister, and she falls down, but jumps back up, and then she starts digging into him. So the thing is there, and she dissolves as Numeon drives Dracaros through her spine, and then with the whole chainsword. And by the time the quarter is quiet again, Vorko is dead at this point, and the last sister got away after killing him. So yes, he dies, and Numeon takes his helmet off and says, we part company. I'm headed to the Sanctum. This isn't obsession or dereliction, brother. I have to protect the Primarch. In my gut, I know he's under threat. And Xenut pushes back. He says, look, Orn and Rand are already guarding Vulkan directly. And Numeon says, yeah, I doubt it. They're probably dead. And Numeon says, even in death, he watches over us, and now I must watch over him in return. Ever since Traoris, I have known this was my duty. And they do the forearm thing. And Xenut says, save our father, and I'll save the ship. So Narek wakes alone in a pool of his own blood. He's not dead, actually. He got knocked out. Well, I didn't say he died. We got knocked out. And there's two, basically, minds fighting each other now.
Right.
And he says, I'm Caspian Hecht. I serve Lord Malcador's knight errant. But it doesn't convince him. And he says, well, he realizes, oh, wait, I'm Berthus and Narek. And he's kind of having this whole thing. But he realizes his directive purposes is to kill a Primarch, and he goes after Quor Gallek. Goodness. So Quor Gallek scratches out the last of Ushaman's psychic wards with his own blood and steps through solid adamantine like mist. Basically, you can start walking. There's no clipping through here. And he gets the Vulkan sarcophagus lady and pushes it aside. And he's I got him. I'm going to get this head. And he says, impaled like the blood-drinking Strigoni of myth, with the kingmaker of Albion fable. I wonder what you are closer to. And he touches his spear and feels nothing. No vision or no truth, nothing like whatever Narek said. He's frustrated, so he takes out this knife and he raises it to cut. And Numeon reaches the Sanctum Quarter to find Orn and Rond already dead. He was right about that one. They run through on each other's blades. Basically, they were convinced to kill each other. And that girl is there with 5 more demons with her. It says, sacred is 6. 6 is sacred. And then everything stops. Freezes for a moment. Even the sirens themselves are forced to mid-step, and only Numeon can move, and a figure steps out of the stillness. It's too large to be a legionary. Bronze skin gone green with age, cracked leather armor, and one eye and other a scarred slit. And it says, you are lost, or tell us. And it's Magnus. How interesting.
Interesting. Okay.
Magnus appears here. Basically, kind of a diminished, fractured form, obviously. And Numeon, it wants to kneel because it's that Primarch presence, but he says no. And Magnus says, doubt. It hollows you as surely as any knife. And he says, help me find Vulkan. And Magnus says, he is dead. Vulkan is dead. And Numeon says, no, Vulkan lives. Listen to me. Have you never listening? And Magnus doesn't disagree. He says, you died on Traoris and have been enslaved to my strings ever since. I've watched over you, Numeon. And what he realizes is every time Numeon should have been died, every miracle that's happened to Numeon at this point was not Vulkan. It was Magnus manipulating things around him. And Magnus says, I had to see if I had it in me. Compassion, cruelty. I'm torn between them in this bitter shell. So basically, we talk about the fragments. He's trying to figure out what he wants to do. So he's testing him. He's like, oh, maybe I can help people. And he helped Numeon. So when he smashed that Terminator's chest plate with just a hammer, Magnus was like, that was me. I enhanced the blow.
Interesting.
And Magnus doesn't stop there. He shifts his whole form into bronze, into onyx, until he turns into Vulkan. And he says, you have been seeking me, my son. And Numeon says, no, I don't believe you. This is not Vulkan. And he says, nothing that comes back can ever truly be the same. So says the circle of fire. And Numeon says, you are not him. I'm not even sure that you are even Magnus. And Magnus turns back into his form. He says, how is it you have lived this long, Salamander, when my brother with all his gifts could not? And Numeon asks the question. He says, can you actually get us to the storm to Nocturne? Magnus can't or won't, but he says, no, but I can give you a choice. The only one you have left. Look into the fire and find your path. And basically this fire starts moving through, and when it ends, Magnus is gone, and whatever Numeon had made a choice, and the ship around him changes around him. And all of a sudden, everything kind of resets, and Degat and the surviving warbearers blink back on board the Monarchia, yank into a fight mid-strike, and Quor Gallek is on his knees shaking, and Degat realizes it's too late, is laughing. And Quor Gallek says, the Crimson King, he has come amongst them. And Degat is like, demands to know why they were pulled back rather than left to finish the fight. He says, Magnus' presence alone would have killed them all. Quor Gallek admits, he's like, but Narek is alive aboard the Charybdis, changed almost beyond recognition. And a single sliver of Fulgurite itself cut free in the last second before Magnus arrived. So basically, Quor Gallek just cut up a little piece of the Fulgurite just for himself.
Yeah.
And he said to turn Narek to a different purpose. Degat snatches his hand back from the fragment, like he touched the fragment like, as if it burned him. And they don't know what to do with it yet, though. And all of a sudden, you get a message from Malaglastion, and he says, the ship is gone, and they're in the clutches of the storm. And yet the Charybdis shows no augurs or sensorium I possess. They're gone, and I need you to tell me where. He's like, oh my God. Get him back here. So Numeon made a choice in the fire, and it's already working. The Charybdis is gone from every scan. So Numeon comes back to himself, mid-free fall, and he's whirling through a corridor as his ship is violently expelled from the storm, basically, jumps back into real space. And Hecht catches him at the last second and brings him back, and he says, are you going to hang there? Come on. Because basically this door is falling towards him. And Zyos reaches him, and they haven't returned to Nocturne at all, but what they are on is the other side of the storm entirely, within reach of Terra itself. And there's a message that repeats that says, Terra stands, heed my words, the words of Rogel Dorn, the Lord of Imperial Fists, and the Emperor's appointed Praetorian. We endure unbowed and defiant against the treachery of Horus. All loyal legions must return to throne world immediately. And then they find out, oh, Terra never fell. The Emperor lives. Just like Vulkan. It is the last thing Numeon ever expected. He's like, wow, this is incredible. So he has to make a choice here. Do you go back to Terra, or do you go to Nocturne? And Numeon says, yeah, we turn our backs on Vulkan. So he's like, we can't do both. So he looks at the casket one more time, and Numeon reads the epitaph on it properly. The Unbound Flame. And Magnus' cryptic instruction clicks into place all at once. And he finds Var'kir and pushes him to look into the flame again, like really look into it. He says, endless fire that devours all things is death fire. The mountain of Nocturne, the rage eternal, that is what you saw. And Var'kir kneels back down and looks again. And they all gather together at Ignium to decide together. And Numeon lays a choice out for them. Turn back into the storm they barely survived once already, on faith alone, or take the safe road to Terra. Dathan explodes at the suggestion. He says, I welcome death, a worthy death, but now as a victim of a storm we barely survived, how can this even be done? And Numeon says, belief, but only if we are united. And one by one, every Salamander present marks their faces with ash and agreement. And Dathan goes last. He's like, all right, fine. Whatever.
Vulkan lives again.
Vulkan lives. I suppose he's living. And Circe wakes up, even though she was dying, but she's not anymore. And he's like, Disney's like, hey, can you just do one more jump, please? And
hear me out.
Just like, look, I know it's probably going to kill you, but but I choose to. So she does, and she knows this one will definitely kill her. So the Charybdis goes back into the Ruinstorm of faith alone, and they jump through with just belief. And the Charybdis eventually breaks through the storm at last, and Ushaman is kind of, Var'kir, Ushaman, and Circe are locked together and working, basically, to use their mind's power to get this thing going. And weeks are passing inside this storm. And then Circe's body becomes a vessel. Xenut Sul's lingering essence is pulling her back out of the thing to stand over the bridge one final time. And Odysseus sees the truth in her barred eye and sits there anyways, and they are, talks to them. And then Var'kir gets a vision, and it says, I see it, the flame, Emulus, death fire. And then Ushaman pays for it with everything he has left, basically pushing the Sagar to the limit. And he's aging and withering to dust in seconds. And he says, one word, he says, Nocturne. And his Charybdis breaks free of the storm, and Ushaman is gone, turned to ash. And then, as they arrive, Nocturne is there. And they see this blood-red world wreathed in volcanic smoke. And Numeon reaches Var'kir in time to realize he's been permanently blinded by the working, even though he's alive. He says, all right, Artellus, I can feel it, our return, our belief. And two ships show up right behind him. The Reaper Shroud, which is Laskin's own cruiser, and the Monarchia. Quor Gallek has tracked him the entire way, using the Fulgurite as a psychic compass. They're like, yep, he's right there. And he's like, And they move in to blockade the planet before the Charybdis can land. They're like, no, you can't win. So, essentially takes command. And she says, "Do what we came to do, my lord. Return Vulkan to the earth." And Var'kir refuses evacuation, to basically saying, "We're going to stand back to defend the bridge so you guys can drop down the surface and bring him in." So back to Narek. He cuts into his face and peels back what he finds underneath. It's not flesh, but it's a synthetic mask that's laid over his real face. And Caspian Hecht was a real person, but it was Macragge was a psyker who has identity grafted over Narek's own erased mind to smuggle him up from Macragge undetected. So the real Hecht died in that chamber. The one with the neck thing.
Oh, yeah.
That was the real Hecht.
Okay.
But Bethesda's Narek basically stole his identity through Macradore's guidance.
Yeah.
And Zathan finds him mid-revelation and draws his blade. He says, whoa, hey, what are you doing, word bearer? And Narek says, no, listen to me. I am not a word bearer, though, but I'm also not Hecht. And they're like, okay. So there's a trepidation right here. All of a sudden, an alert for Nocturne sounds, and Zathan looks away, and Narek knocks him out. He starts running away because he knows the Get is coming, and Narek doesn't have time left to argue with him about that. So, down in the launch phase, Numeon's team gets Vulkan's casket aboard the gunship as the Charybdis' shields fail entirely under this opening barrage. And Numeon gamers like they won't expect us to run rather than fight, but then the gunship punches out through the wreckage of the already dying Monarchia. Says he turned every gun that Charybdis had left against it. So she blows apart the Monarchia, actually, which is kind of impressive because the Monarchia was like one of their number one ships.
Right.
And in the cargo hold, Zathan finds the Get first and lets Narek's sniper shot do the actual killing. And Zathan says, "Get done, word bearer. My death is long overdue." So, yeah, Zathan at this point is not doing well. Because Narek is like, I think I'm a word bearer. I think I made my choice. Unless you're going to finally realize the deception. He's like, Vulkan was never with the Charybdis at all. He's like, oh, they brought him to the surface because Lesnar's an idiot, as we found out. And he says, "I will conquer Nocturne or raise it to ash. Either way, the skull of Vulkan shall be mine." So Charybdis is breaking apart at this point, and Zathan says, "Barring a few servitors, we're the last souls alive on this ship." And Zathan holds him up, so he holds up Var'kir, so he can face the viewport one last time, even though he's blind and he lost a leg. And Zathan says, "Vulkan lives, chaplain." And Var'kir says, "In every deed we do from now until the time of ending." And the Charybdis breaks apart around him as the Reaper's Shroud finishes what the Monarchia started. And Var'kir says, "At least I saw Nocturne one last time," which you did in your blind, but it doesn't matter. So they're pursued by Death Guard Raptors through Nocturne's own atmosphere. Basically, there's a whole chase here. And they bring him down and kind of get the whole deal, like, "Hey, we got Vulkan here, the whole thing, blah, 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 help us." And he says, "Vulkan lives." They're like, "Yep." And Vulkan's casket has basically smashed into the ground. They got to dig it out of the ground. And some reinforcements arrive. Nomus Raton, I think I have a picture of Nomus. Where is you, Nomus? There's Nomus Raton. He's there helping. And he is Var'kir's old mentor. He has the title of the Voice of the Fire and the Keeper of the Keys. So he's coming to go help them. And Raton takes them to a stronghold, capable of holding against what's coming. It's called the Draconia's Gate. And it is garrisoned by mostly untested neophytes. But they're going to try. Vulkan's casket goes into the sealed vault deep inside it, as the Reaper's Shroud makes orbit overhead. And Lascon says, you know what? Virus bombs. I'm tired of this. And they drop some virus bombs down, but then Nomus says, "Engage burners," and these auto flamers come up and burn out the virus in the air before it can even go out. So they had the protection there. So, and all of a sudden, Nocturne starts responding to this attack. The earth splits open, and gnarlworms, urdrakes, wyverns, basilisks, dracons, and creatures the Death Guard have no response for start attacking them as they land on this planet. Tank armors melting under fire, turrets getting torn off by claws, and Nomus says they rise for him. Nocturne angers. And basically says, you can go do what you're doing while the planet is attacking these Death Guard.
Right.
So, eventually, Lesgon tries to claim his name for himself. He says, "I'm going to, kill you myself." And Numeon says, "No, you're not." And they ends up killing him with Dracaros through his throat, and takes his head off. And Numeon says, "No one will remember you, traitor, least of all me." And he tosses his head out. And then the Death Guard are like, "Oh, all right, we got to go." So they leave. And then now that they're calm, Raton calls them aside and says, "We got to do this ritual." And so they proceed. And fewer than 800 Salamanders gather at the caldera, which is the Death Fire volcano. And everyone is marked for a rite that they never had to perform before. They flew over a Primarch. They never like this should never happen. So Vulkan's body is chained at 4 cardinal points and lowered by hand into the mountain itself. Dawnbringer still in his hand, and the full ray still lodged in his chest. And Nomos Ratan says, Lord of Drakes, Saber Nocturne, glorious son of the Emperor of Mankind, Vulkan, we commit you to fire. And they kind of drop the chains out until he's in the mountain, in the volcano. And 9 days pass after this. And Vulkan still does not come back. And Nocturne himself goes quiet. And Numeon walks out in the desert alone, unarmored and unarmed. And nobody really sees him leave. He climbs Mount Deathfire himself. Past the point of exhaustion, his feet are bloodied. He's all this heat is cooking him. And he finds a fissure in the rock the exact moment that this small earthquake happens. And he goes inside it. And then when this pyroclastic cloud clears, the fissure is gone, and so is Numeon. And Xylos is like, well, where'd he go? They go to find him, and they find his armor and the sigil still sitting in the vault where he left him. And they like look around, where is he? And this guy Abademi says, I have something. And they find a figure half buried in ash inside of the mountain, alive but barely. But it isn't Numeon. The figure rises steadily to his feet, one hand clenched around his fingertips, still embedded in his own chest. He says, my sons. And it is Vulkan.
Yes.
And that's where we end.
Nice.
Yeah, any questions about that one?
I mean, I don't know if you'll have the answer, but it is interesting that Magnus kind of showed up in the war, or like I guess one aspect of him with kind of
the shards.
Yeah, that was interesting. Like, I guess I'm curious, kind of if that gets expanded on when they start looking for him, like the Thousand Sons. But
and just kind of go a little ahead of behind the inside baseball here. That Magnus episode, well, the one I'm working on, is very long, so I'm sure they probably cover some of it. 5 hours. And don't worry, audience, I'm not going to do that to you. We're going to break it up. But yes, it is a long one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you don't have any questions, this one's called a kind of a long one too. We'll wrap it up there. And in the comments, hey, Vulkan lives.
So true.
That's what I got to put down there. Little hammer emoji for engagement. But anyways, till next time. Bye.